I'm chasing shadows in the night. Words echo silent where I hide. Every mirror shows a stranger's eyes, searching for the part of me that's mine. Let the sky ignites a spark inside, burning down to wait in the ashes of my pride. Truth is born again. I will rise up like a phoenix from the flame. Find my voice and call out your name. From the roots of what I used to be, I'll embrace the truth and set it free. Blinded by the weight of all my fears, I let them break me, shape my tears. Every scar's a testament to life. Now I rewrite the story in my mind. Yeah, feel the fire burning. I'm no longer turning away from the truth that's calling. I'm alive today. All I used to be, flash of freeness, flies wearing, set me free. Rising high, Phoenix, watch me go.
Innocent. Brian has been essentially convicted in the media. He has a right to have this information withheld, brought out in public, so that people can see it's not this neat little package. So people can start to wonder if Brian's innocent. Your Honor, Brian is innocent. So if I talk about things that are in the affidavit, and if I talk about things that we're seeking that the state wants to hide, I think that's fair game for the public to hear.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is Friday Fun, and if you are ready, we are going to get into it with a special guest talking about the Idaho 4. If you have not seen the real Jess Raines, you are going to be so blessed and so just amazing. She is insightful, she is smart, she is funny, she is so personable, and she is so beautiful, and she is backstage. Let me just do a welcome. And I just love you guys. I love the community that we built. I love that our channel is growing because this is truly our community channel where facts and evidence matter. We rise above the assumptions of all the rumors and we think with open minds. So every question matters, every angle is welcome. And if you're trolling, keep on a scrolling, because if I just described you, welcome home. Welcome home, everybody. Linda, welcome in. Les, mods are here and ready to rock and roll. Trail Girl, hello. Good afternoon. Patty, Rebecca, Caleb, Lulu Bell, OGs are in the house. Happy Friday, Fiesta Friday. That's a cute little name. Hey, friend, true to it. Terry, good to see ya. Carrie, good to see ya. Dina, Terry, OG in the house. She's ready for some fireballs and fire. And I'll tell you, this girl's got some fire. You thought I had fire. She's got fire. This live is going to be great. Hi, Lisa. Good to see you. Crossroads Accounting and Tax Service. Remember, it's going to be tax time soon. Shout out to small businesses in our live. Excited? Thumbs up, everybody, right now. Drop a comment if you are excited for this live. It is all coming in. Brenda, don't be hating. Don't be hating. Your Honor, Brian is innocent. He's factually innocent. Boy, do we know. And now we know what the state was trying to hide. Not only that, what everyone was trying to hide. Gosh, generational liars. I'm telling you. Phoenix and Jess, so excited about this. Carrie, Nana, Miss Bernie, Lisa, welcome in. We are going to go get her. Does everybody agree? Let's get the real Jess Raines and let's bring her on. What do y'all think? I'm so excited. All right. Let me just go ahead and throw you up on stage. Here we go. Jess, you available? You ready to go? I can't hear you. Let me just throw you up in here and see if I can get it. Do, 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 do. All right, here you are. Let's do this. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear
Whoop,
me? Yay.
whoop,
Thank you
whoop. We
so
can hear
much.
you,
First of all,
girlfriend.
and thank you for having me. I have been an avid follower of you for a while, at least a year or so now. And, when I first saw this case, I don't know that there was any woman on the planet whose intuition didn't say, I don't know about this. And I mean, over time, after reading the documents and seeing the crime scene photos and the interrogations, it's like, come on, man, who was who was in charge of this operation? Because nothing, I mean, when two plus two doesn't make four, it just doesn't. So I'm thankful for people like you that, keep digging because they definitely push back. You get a lot of pushback. They don't want this being talked about. So I don't know what is hidden under this vile rug of lies, but I'm reading Framed by John Grisham right now, and it's about 23 cases of wrongful convictions. Two of the people were days away from being executed. Can you imagine
Oh,
spending decades of your life behind bars for a crime that you had absolutely nothing to do with? And there's thousands of people, it's not just like this is a one time thing. And the fact that people are so comfortable with saying, oh, we'll just believe everything the media tells us. And there's possibly someone that's completely 1000% innocent of this crime and so many other crimes. So, I just got to give my hats off to anyone that's still talking about the Idaho case because I truly think they just thought we were going to let it all die down and we would just let him rot in prison forever, And our voices are powerful and they don't want people to know that either.
absolutely. I agree. What attracted me to you was your insight, your smart little cookie. I'm telling you, I'm probably old enough to be your mother, but I would say that you have wisdom. And what you said about insight and gut instinct in women, I have seen this across the board. Some men get it, but mostly I've seen is women. And that is the more prominent likely viewership of this this podcast, this YouTube channel. And I've always brought facts and evidence, and I love the fact that you talk about the facts and evidence that you've seen, not just some random off the wall subject, but it pertains to the documents and your insight about those documents, but not just that, the insight about the individuals involved in this case. And the first video I ever saw of you was talking about the justice system. Now, a lot of people don't know, Jess, that, and I hope it's okay if I call you Jess. Um, a lot of people don't know that your video has actually been seen over 1 million views, that you just posted. Gosh, what was it, this week, last week?
Yeah, it was this week, man. And honestly, I was like, I had been on the fence. My other account, I had talked about it previously. I mean, I had that account maybe 5 years and it got bananaed. So everything I had said was gone. And once I started looking back into it, and something just led me to the interrogations. And once I had those and I fact checked the alibis, just a few of what I could check and find. That's when stuff really started not making sense. I had 400 followers at the beginning of this week on TikTok, so I'm thinking like, oh, 7 people will see this, and a million people saw it. But I honestly
Yeah.
believe that that's because of the victims carrying the message. And because I won't stop looking. And I know some people think, oh, well, just let it go, what can you do about it? But a lot of people don't know that I was arrested in 2015. I asked the man the bartender at this bar for his phone charger, and he said it was in his car. I got sexually assaulted. I rode to the bar with this girl I had known from school like 10 years ago. I didn't even party like that much anymore. Something in my gut told me don't go that night, and I went against it, and they left me. So I was trying to call to get a ride home, and everything went sideways. My car was there, but I lost my best friend in a car wreck when I was 16 to a drunk driving accident. So I don't, I try to get a ride, and they told, this is how I know the way things work, because people that have never been arrested, even if you're only in there for 20 minutes, the officers you see at Speedway and the gas station aren't the same officers you deal with when you're inside a correction facility. It's not like you get to be, you get to call the shots, or you get to say the way my sentencing, the judge told me, Miss Rains, I do believe that you never did anything that to get yourself into this situation. I believe everything happened the way you said it happened, but you chose to go out that night. So I could either plead guilty to my guilt in whatever happened that night for drinking and driving, because I they had me handcuffed to a wheelchair, and I assaulted a cop. And I've had that expunged and it's gone, but a lot of people don't know that, and they told me either you sign the plea agreement or we're giving you the maximum penalty, because if you take this to trial, you're going to lose 1,000%. Nobody in your jury of peers is going to say that you're not guilty. My dad, rest his soul, his jaw dropped when the judge said that to me. He literally jaw dropped and was like, I can't believe that he just said that he thinks that everything happened the exact way, because I had never been in trouble one time in my life before. So this case feels oddly personal to me, just because I understand what it's like to have to say I'm guilty, even though they wouldn't do, they refused to do a rape kit on me. They refused to do anything for me that night. And I can see where everything gets twisted. And in this John Grisham book, I did want to read this one little paragraph, because a lot of people don't understand how this could have occurred. But when you're dealing with, like you said, multi-generational fraudulent activity, or whatever, whoever has going on, it's a lot harder than you think to fight. You're one person. It's a lot harder once you're inside those bars to be taken seriously. It says often the real killers were under the nose of the police from the outset of the crime, and in two cases, they were the star witnesses for the prosecution. DNA played an important role in several cases, but not in most. Perjury by police and civilian witnesses was pervasive in these stories. These convictions were not caused by unintentional mistakes by local law enforcement, or misidentification by well meaning witnesses, or honest but erroneous forensic analysis. No, they were rooted in law enforcement misconduct and chicanery, which, look up the definition of that. Men and women hell bent on clearing cases or gaining a conviction through a wide variety of illicit means. Subornation of perjury, secret deals with criminals in exchange for their fabricated testimony, coercing witnesses into false testimony, or suspects to falsely confess, use a discredited or inept forensic analysis, suppression of exculpatory evidence from the defense, or other acts that are obstructed justice and resulted in the ruination of lives to the relief of the actual perpetrators. And that just hits so
Absolutely.
hard, so hard thinking about that case, man.
Well, I think you have a valid point about our justice system. You don't know until you're in it, right? You don't know until you're up against the system, and then you understand what the system really is about. But it's very hard to advocate for yourself while you're in the system. Very difficult. So you are primarily on TikTok. I see you're almost at 10,000. So if our viewers are on TikTok, go follow her. If you, I dropped your YouTube link, they can follow you here. I know YouTube is probably a path that you will follow, but I know that my viewers would love to get more insight to your logical thinking. And boy, do you have an amazing a catalog right now on TikTok of the logical thinking. I just have to give you applause because, you know, you see that you've gone viral with this one video, and I want to play it for those who have not seen this video. I think it's really important to listen to what she has to say, and we're going to discuss some of these points. Now, we've not really discussed this of what let's talk about some of the things that you pointed out in this video. And then I want you to share with our viewers the new information that you found that you touched on this morning, because I went down that rabbit hole and I am just as shocked as you are, Jess. Let's watch the video.
Well, we were all wrong. There were two males in the house that night around 1:32 a.m. They pulled up and the girl walks outside and says, "Blank, what are you doing here? I see you, blank." And this video is for education and entertainment purposes only. When they realized Kaylee and Maddie were still at the corner club, they went to the corner club and then they followed them home. They get out of the car and slam the door, and you hear them, they stop Murphy, and you hear him say, "Blank, don't go too crazy in there." They enter the house. You hear him say, "Get that bitch into Xana's room." They did tie them up and they bound them together and they gagged them, Kaylee and Maddie. He proceeds to start yelling at her, asking if she had been double dipping. She said no. She said, "Please stop," basically. This is all around 3:45 now, or at least that's what the timestamps say. He proceeds to Kaylee, and you hear gurgling and aspirating. Maddie screams, "Kaylee, no." He says, "Stop." She says, "Kaylee," again. He says, "She's gone." As soon as he says she's gone, the other unidentified male, number 2, says, "Come on, let's get ready to go to the house and clean up." They found blood in the other cabin, remember? As soon as they go to exit around 3:48, almost to 3:49 a.m., at the very end of 3:48, so 3:48 and 50 seconds around then, he says, "Come on, let's get ready to go home and clean up." They go to walk out and Ethan walks in. Ethan gasps and says, "Oh shit, I'm calling 911." Then you hear the first male say, "Come here." He starts chasing Ethan. They get in a scuffle. It was the two men against Ethan. You hear Ethan yell for Xana, and then Xana comes down, and that's when the fight started with her, which is why she had so many defense wounds, because she was awake and she was trying to help Ethan, which is why Dylan never called 911, because she literally watched them unalive Ethan for saying he was going to call 911. Then one of the males speaks to one of the females, that must have been Dylan, and said, "Just tell them it was an accident." That's why Dylan didn't call 911. That's also why Dylan was so uncontrollably emotional at the sentencing, because she.
So let's do this. I want to stop it right there, Jess, and I want to get your insight real quick. Where does your insight come from after all of the videos that you've watched and all the audio that you've heard? And I think you're talking about the Emily audio. Is that correct, that she put up on her TikTok?
Yes, there was one that I saw from her. So I said, well, why don't I go back to the footage and listen for myself? And I sat here and tried to transcribe on my page what I kind of heard word for word, because in Jack D's interrogation, I mean, everyone was asleep, right? Everyone was asleep. Then why did a car wreck at 2:40 a.m. and there was multiple weapon sounds that definitely weren't fireworks? Trust me, baby. I'm from a dangerous city, and I know that sound, and it just really makes me wonder, because I the audio that one of the news stations, I noticed the other day, the video they put out was of the suspect's car who was there all night, but that car didn't belong to Brian Koberger, because later around 6:30 a.m. you can finally see the color, and to me it looks to be silver or gray, like you said. So
Correct.
was the wrecked car the wrecked Elantra that everyone had on social media, and everyone said, "Oh no, that's totally unrelated"? But they said that the car was driving around with no plate, and that was very strange. And that happens to be the car that didn't have the plate on it, So it just makes you wonder. I actually couldn't hear the part of the audio where I was talking on the video for some reason. So I couldn't hear actually what I was saying. So but that's where it comes from when you
Yeah,
go to
that
the
sometimes happens.
interrogations. Well, if you go to the interrogations and you just double check alibis like any normal detective would, you would have had probably more questions. I just don't. I'm a very what are the odds type of lady, and just what are the odds, of everything, the way that everything happened. How could one, if touch DNA can be transferred from object to object or person to person, or it can be used from a familial link, then did they, when they ran the genealogy, I started wondering, well, was when they ran the genealogy to find the person who did it, did they just find maybe a match of a relative or something, and that's how he got pulled into this? Or was he targeted and this was because with the pictures we saw this morning, it it doesn't feel like it could have not been super premeditated. How would
Right.
one
Well,
person
here's
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're okay. I'm getting some feedback. Here's my theory. If you've been watching, and I kind of build up to the next level of what we find at that time. So, I started saying no one's talking about Jack Decor being the number one suspect. I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. I know I'm going to get some flack and some feedback. And I thought I want to know from just my curiosity, these seasoned detectives and the ISP, I wanted to see what they were seeing. And then I went back a little bit and I thought, what if he is guilty? Let's go down this rabbit hole and see what they see. And the only lead that they were looking at was Jack Decor in the beginning. And then they got DNA from everyone and they still had him as the lead suspect. So they must have had some type of information that said he was the guy. And I thought, well, in all the MPD documents, and I've reviewed them all, and I've reviewed all the ISP, the photos, and everything, I thought, what would they have on JD to make him be guilty? And so I went down that rabbit hole, and the viewers love it because I connect the dots. And I thought, on that day, Brian Koberger's name comes up. They let him go on vacation, spend time with his family, and he knew they were coming after Christmas. Because I think either they framed Brian Koberger or he's agreed to be in this situation as a patsy. For someone that is high up there, that has a lot of money, that can make things disappear. And that is a speculative theory that I've been working on, which lines up to a lot of this math ain't mapping per court. It's not mathing. And they could have got that DNA anywhere. So who left the sheet there to frame Brian Koberger? Who left it there? Was it the last person in the house, which was Hunter Johnson? Because he was in that house much earlier than 10 a.m. per two witnesses. So when you start looking at this case a little bit more in detail, were you shocked to hear Jack Decor's name on those unredacted documents that were released?
Oh, no, not at all. I expected it. I mean, normally in a homicide investigation, the first thing that you're going to do is look at the people closest to him. The fact that she had broken up with him 3 weeks ago and was doing very well for herself says a lot. And I did notice one other thing during all the other interrogations. Everyone had something to say about the things Kaylee had. They were jealous of the possessions she had and how people loved her, and Maddie too. But I mean, with the attack being, it feels specifically targeted to Kaylee. And so that's the same thing I did. I said, well, that's kind of weird that just a stranger from so far away would be doing something like that. And then I was like, well, the only thing that pulled me into this besides my intuition when I said something's off, was thinking they said he did it in under 13 minutes. How would you do that? How would you meticulously clean a crime scene as well as do that much damage to someone's face, to their bodies? We've seen the reports, and not one person could do that. I'm sorry. You would be way too tired. You wouldn't have, I don't care what you were on, but like I said, who would be able to meticulously clean a crime scene? Someone with an Adderall addiction, someone with a cocaine addiction, somebody that's doing drugs. So I always wondered, because I knew the DoorDash, it's planted. That's weird too. Because A, we see the guy in the trash can in the middle of the night. So was he bringing stuff back? Was that something? There's a Sharpie on one of the desks, which it clearly was written Xana and Sharpie. And I always found it ironic that the name was right above Jack in the box, because that's
Mhm.
something that someone would do to take credit for a kill. Somebody that wants the
Jack.
recognition or
Mhm.
wants the word to, wants the world to know somehow. And the fact that they kept framing or saying that, Brian Koberger, Ted Bundy, this, that, and the third, think about the movies. Think about the money that will be made off this.
Mhm.
And if he's innocent, they painted the picture of, he was just some crazed psychopath from day one and nobody gave him a fair chance. And he was convicted guilty before he ever even got a chance to say his side of the story. Everything Ann Taylor brought up in court was completely shot down. So they said in a Tubi
Mhm.
documentary on this that they had been following Brian for 4 days and observing him. I just want to say that if you were observing someone and following them for 4 days, that would be a really good time to go inside of their home and maybe, I don't know, get a knife sheath out of there. I don't know what happened, but your brain can't help to wonder, because what are the odds? They had other male DNA. I've never seen them take touch DNA over the DNA that was under someone's fingernails or the blood that was left at the scene. It makes
Right.
no sense.
Well, remember, Brian Koberger's sister came out with an interview last week, or just a couple days ago, sorry, this week on Monday. And she basically said that Brian would take nightly runs and he would leave his apartment unlocked. So that would give anyone a prime motive if they knew and they were following him. And perhaps, the community is pretty small. WSU has students that mingle with Idaho State University and vice versa. And I thought, what if it was somebody that was going to frame him and taken stuff, because there were other robberies in that area, that there were other things that were missing in this area. So maybe he never reported it stolen and just thought, most people don't report things stolen like that. But I believe somebody gave him, one of his professors gave him a K-bar style knife years before that. So I thought that was a little odd, especially when they did his evidence in Pennsylvania. There were a couple of, weapons, there were a couple of knives. He had an arsenal, right? He had a 22, he had a Glock. I mean, I'm just like shocked, right? He really wanted to become a cop. But I will say, when you start talking about, let's focus on JD for a second. I did a video the other day about him walking at the memorial and then watching the dumpster guy walk around. And I thought, is that Jack Decor? And I played them all side by side, and a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, he's got the walk, he's got the shoes. He changes again at 5 a.m. into his regular white tennis shoes that he's in all these pictures that have been shared." And then you have Steve G, who is protecting him, and the narrative was that there were two weapons. Then we find out that maybe it's not two weapons. The police defer to go talk to the G family about that. And I'm like, what other police department has ever referred to a victim's family to go ask them if two weapons were used? What in the world is going on in this case? Do you
Well,
think two weapons were used?
I think there was more. I think there was possibly more than two, honestly, at this point. Definitely, it could have been, because think about it. What one person is going to be able to, he walks into a house with six people in it, and scrawny little Brian Koberger, who looks nothing like an all-star basketball player or however Dylan described it. It's weird. I don't see one person coming into a house filled with six people and four of them not being able to fight off one guy. It makes no sense. So that's weird to me too. But I mean, when you did the gate video of where he was walking yesterday on live, and Steve gave him that look, you know what I noticed? Jack Decor never had a beard until that that's the first time I've ever seen him with a full beard. So that's kind of weird, because you would think that somebody would try to conceal their identity. But the 5 in the morning footage, I did a video where I did a clip of his interrogation, and the guy standing outside being waiting to be picked up in a vape cloud. Brian Koberger doesn't vape, right? A vape cloud goes across,
Mhm.
his screen lines up and the vape cloud goes across. Well, I didn't realize that when I posted the video, I put the screen, the overlay on it so you could see the car pulling up and the man getting into it, because I pointed out he had a hat on with his hoodie pulled up over his head. And that was specific to me because he did it in his interrogation too. But you know what? You could hear when he said something in the interrogation, as soon as it goes silent, you hear the person at 5 a.m. getting in the car, the loud car we heard drive back and forth all night. So if Brian Koberger did this alone and he drove alone, then who the hell was driving that car picking someone up at 5 a.m. when everyone was asleep? But it was identical to his voice. He has a very specific voice, and you can hear multiple people
Mhm.
talk throughout the night. When he said, oh, well, Kaylee texted me, I said that's weird, because anybody who watches true crime shows knows that the killer texts themselves or emails themselves, hey, when you get a chance, email me, because email can't be proved that, that who was typing it. It doesn't, that just because something was from an account,
Mhm.
which always led me to the time when Brian got pulled over for that seatbelt ticket, because they asked him for his phone number. He had already been pulled over multiple times at this point. Why didn't they get his phone number for all the other reports? And it's not in the system. He gets in his car, and I believe he put the note in his pocket, but it's like they said too that he had been looking at the social medias. Did they create an account with his phone number or something? I don't know, but it's just all very strange. And I mean, who would have more of a motive? A stalker would. Don't you think that he would want to steal something, or a sexual motive or something? It just seems like the
Right.
ex-boyfriend would have more of a motive.
Well, that's what he studied, right? He was looking at crime of sexual nature, but this was not a sexual crime. So let me ask you, Jess, what time do you think that this all took place? What time do you think Xana and Kaylee were unalived? What time do you think Maddie and, I'm sorry, Xana and Ethan, and what time do you think Maddie and Kaylee were unalived?
After watching the video from 1 in the morning, I mean, I haven't been through every single minute, but I went back to the alibis and the time frames that the people were saying, just to kind of cross reference and see, oh, was it quiet? What was going on? And it wasn't quiet at all. It was like Midwest Chicken Shore says, she always says it wasn't a quiet night in Idaho. It's probably the loudest night they've ever heard. You around so around 1:04 a.m. Well, 1 o'clock a.m. you hear the beep go off on the keypad to enter the door.
Mm-hmm.
And at 1:04 a.m. you see three or four figures in all black, ironically, run through the sliding door. And this is from the 1330 Linda Lane footage. Then I said, well, if they talked at this time, he said he called her at 2:57 and they had a FaceTime. Why would he not remember what they were talking about? Be so for real. You talk for 20 minutes and you don't know what you were saying, because did you call yourself from her phone? That seems more than likely. Especially because he said that Maddie never texted him, and all of a sudden Maddie called him 3 times that night. That sounds more like you needed Maddie's phone number and didn't have it, because maybe she had a reason. Because I know when I had a bad boyfriend, my best friend was like, oh no, girl, like she could not stand him. So is that the contact Dylan created too? Like, why didn't we get that information?
Mm.
But 1:04 to 1, so 1 o'clock.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? They won't tell us who that contact was. But Maddie and Dylan were supposedly texting on the documents. So did she not have her number? And that's because that seems more than likely to me, because I don't save people in my phone that I don't like. I think those girls maybe didn't get along as well. Dylan had only been there for 90 days, which is completely unrelated to everything else, but it's the point. It's psychology says
Right.
that you don't know someone until after 90 days, 3 months
The
of knowing them,
honeymoon.
90 to 120 days. You don't know who someone is. So was her true colors just coming out? Because, we don't know. Why is it that we don't get certain pieces of the information that feels like it's being hidden for a reason? But I think personally, based off what I've heard, I know for a fact around 2:15 to 2:45 was the worst time of that night. 2:10, 2:15, you hear a struggle. You could hear them inside for a little bit, but honestly, when you start hearing the worst parts, it sounded like it was echoing outside. 2:15 to 2:20, I believe, is when she's being I would say strangulated personally, because they were talking. She said, "Get off me." And then everything goes silent for about 30 seconds. And then you hear, I mean, it was the worst gasp I've literally ever heard. Like, it was ungodly. Like, she was probably at the end of her life then. So I'd like to know about her hyoid bone in her throat and see if that was broken as well. But because if he had broken her hyoid, how was she going to scream out while all of this was happening? Because around 2:40 a.m. is when the three weapon shots are fired. And you hear someone scream, "Go, go, go." And then right after the weapons are shot, I want to say around 2:44, you hear, "Oh, he wrecked the car." And is that why the bricks are down in
Wow.
front of is that why the bricks are down right there in the crime scene photos of when they show the whole house from behind? Because there was a white wrecked Elantra that was plateless after that. So that makes more sense. How would that not be any type of related to this crime? And then I think, but see, I believe there was a time change. So I'm very confused with that. If the times on the cameras are 1 hour off, because at 3:46 he starts saying there was no talk about something, you were double dipping. But there is one point where you hear someone say, "I missed you and I've been so lonely since you were gone." So if Brian Koberger didn't know this girl, why the heck would he be saying that to her? That sounds more like somebody who got broken up with. And you hear something, some kind of
Totally
attack go.
personal.
Oh yeah. So on one of the back camera footage, where it shows the back patio, not the 1330 Linda where you see the sliding glass doors, the other one, around 3:46 a.m. he says something, he says something, and something's happening to Kaylee. Well, as soon as that happens, you hear Maddie, I'm assuming, or maybe it was Dylan, but I would say probably Maddie, because I mean, Dylan showed no emotion ever. So there's that. But she said, "Kaylee," and he said, "Stop, she's gone." That's about 3:46. You hear another male say, "Come on, man, let's get ready to go home and clean up. You ready?" Clear as day. So if that's one person, then who the hell is that? 3:48, 58 seconds after. So right at 3:49, Ethan walks in. They were leaving, dude. He literally, it makes me cry because he literally walked in as they were leaving, and he said, "Oh shit, I'm calling 911." And the next thing you hear is him say, "Hey, come here." And that's when you hear the loud thud. So part of the story they given us is true, but I believe that Ethan and Xana had just got home. She was in her underwear, so she was clearly getting ready for bed. And when he starts struggling, he yelled for her. So what happened? Because this went on all
Linda
night
Lane
long.
footage you're talking. Is
104,
this
you
a
can see
Linda
in the
Lane?
corner. 1 o'clock here, you hear the door alarm go off under the door, you hear it beep. And then at 104 to 106, you see 3 or 4 males in all black enter the home, which is were they hiding out in there? Were they camping out waiting for them? Because that's what I think. And then they get home, and you can hear them talking, and you can hear her saying, "Stop, stop." But I mean, even then, if everyone was at home asleep, then what was going on in there? Because there was multiple people in that house, and you can hear someone standing under the camera almost all night, zipping and unzipping a bag, lighting a cigarette, it sounds like, or maybe flicking open a pocket knife. So yeah, on this tape right here from 104 to 106, you can literally see 3 or 4 people running in the damn house in all black. And then also in Jack's interrogation, he said something about Murphy going missing that night, right? And Murphy ran off whenever the gunshots were fired. And in my theory, from what I heard and what I saw, I believe Murphy runs out in the middle of the night. And he said something, something, and he said, "Well, I overheard Dylan saying something about the dog ran off." So does that not place you there? Because how could you overhear somebody if you're at home asleep? Or were you
Right.
on FaceTime? I mean, But my theory is they did everything they did because it goes real quiet. So between, I believe that Kaylee and Maddie died right at 3:46, unless the hour was off by an hour, then 2:46 and 2:49 a.m. Because by 5 a.m. it goes quiet, everyone goes home, and then you only see like one more car after that. But from 1 to I want to say like 150-ish to 2:40 in the morning, 2:40, 2:47 probably is when it's the worst. And so it wasn't a quick and easy thing either. And I want to make that known because what I heard on that tape, it'll never leave my mind ever.
Yeah, so I agree because the investigators in ISP were asking pretty much around 2:48, where were you located? What were you doing? That's the time that I believe they let out to us and narrowed down the 2:48 timeline. But I think it was around, somebody had heard the yelling and fighting going on, and I believe they did call in the alcohol offense because they thought it was alcohol related, and they called 911, and they ended up going over to the band field. And I've always thought that the band field was a distraction. So, we hear a lot on that new audio that had been released. It, here's the deal. I don't know if that audio has been manipulated in any way, and if it is in fact the official released footage, because we don't see the MPD releasing that to the general public like they did most of all these other documents. Yes, there have been FOIAs filed. I filed over 65 with Moscow Police Department and still have not gotten one file. Everything they email back is pretty much, it is under the privacy law. And
You're
but
the last
I
person,
did get a
Phoenix.
FOIA back.
You are the last person they
Yeah,
would want to have those documents. You're so good.
well, here's the deal. I did a FOIA request for ISP, and they gave us the forensic documents. They downloaded them and uploaded them on Halloween, and there was no charge for them. So I am wondering how MPD is charging for all these, because I mean, I have paid over $4,600 for transcripts in the past. But I will say, there is time, there is money involved, people have to do their jobs, but it does get expensive. But the ISP basically released all those forensic documents for free. So, one question that I've had on my mind is, Tanya says, and how do you not remember a 17-minute phone call? Here is what I was thinking about this phone call. Is it possible someone called themselves? Because remember, everyone said in an interview that Hunter left his phone somewhere at 1122, and they all went to this, frat party. Did all the frat members leave their phones at 1122? Did anybody have their phones when they went out with Ethan and Hunter and everybody that left? I mean, where were all these people phones? Did they put them in one location? Because I even remember Emily saying she left her phone in the car.
Yeah, that's another thing. What are the odds that somebody that young's going to go anywhere without a damn cell phone? I mean, what are the odds? That's what's gotten me in
Exactly.
this case. There's too many freaking things to say. Oh, yeah, this guy ran in at 4 in the morning when everything's completely silent and nobody screamed once at 4 a.m. And if you were being brutally attacked the way that those people were, there's no way, because trust me, they screamed. Oh, they said a lot, which is why I wondered, like, did he squeeze her when he choked her? Did he break her hyoid bone? Because I doubt she would have been able to scream out then, because for a portion she screams, get off of me. Then he chokes her, and then you hear her gasp, and the next thing you know, there's weapons fired, there's a car that wrecks. So that's my question. How could those officers look at that footage and not say, what the heck? You guys said you were asleep. So if you weren't asleep, then what were you doing? Because it obviously, the level that this was done at, this was meticulously planned. I don't care what anyone says. Anyone who would leave their phone at home for an alibi to a crime, I mean, and think about it. Everybody that had a story has an alibi. And then now all of a sudden everyone's getting married. There's a lot of wedding bells going on in Idaho, man. So who really
Oh,
knows?
yeah.
Real weird, but everyone had an alibi, and it just doesn't seem to me that one person could meticulously clean a crime scene after hurting someone that bad. For people that bad. And I want to know, what about is that why they tore the house down so soon? Because there was maybe possibly bullet holes and they couldn't find the shell casings or something, and that's why they didn't want anyone to walk through. Because any other trial, literally they'll let the jury do a walkthrough. Those pictures were taken in a very specific way of the crime scene, and I think they're leaving out a lot. I think they took the angles they wanted to take. um and that's it, really, because at portions there you can just tell. It's like, did they crop something out almost in some of them? I don't know, but I don't believe that one person could do this. And another thing is, you guys had touch DNA off a knife sheath. It's not like it was the actual knife. So that always kind of sat weird with me too, because if he was really guilty, wouldn't he have to give a confession? Most people have to give a confession of and tell what happened that night, and then they have to tell what weapon they used. So I mean, I feel like it was, you're getting life or death, you choose. And he felt, well, I can either go get shot by the firing squad for something that I didn't do, or I can possibly, hopefully, get exonerated someday, which, again, like you said, once you're in the system, it's a lot harder for someone to listen to your voice, because you get treated like you are just the lowest of lows, man. And I want people to understand too. Imagine if you were just minding your own business, going for runs, doing whatever, because by all accounts from everyone else, besides the people who tried to say that he was weird, he seemed pretty calm. He never had any background in violence. He never had anything on his record. And then all of a sudden he's getting pulled over 4 times in a week and stuff. It makes you wonder, man, what's going on?
Absolutely. I mean, what do you think? And I'm just curious to hear what you have to say about everything that you've studied. What do you think that they did for those 8 hours in between the 911 call?
I believe they meticulously cleaned up, because I noticed today, flipping through the crime scene photos again, for everyone to have entered in all black, every single, damn near every laundry basket has black clothing in it that looks like maybe it had just come out of the wash. So why was that not considered? Why does it look like because when you look at those crime scene photos, I don't care if you don't even have a trained eye, if you know nothing about true crime or forensics, something's off. I've never seen such a clean crime scene, and there's no way one person went in there in 13 minutes, meticulously cleaned up. There wasn't enough red stuff around for that. Those bodies were clearly staged, which makes me wonder, is that what was going on at 5 a.m.? Did they go back to stage the bodies? Because I think what happened personally, somebody had said that the doors were open all night. You know what you could do? You could dry a house out in 8 hours if you knew what you were doing. You could repaint a house. You could sand the floors down and recoat them and try to get up all the stains, because the back patio too, in different angles, it looks like there are big round dark stains, and concrete's a porous surface. So if something gets on there that's dark like blood, especially because of the way blood oxidizes, it's going to leave a rust mark. But over the time, gradually, you see the pictures change and all those stains are gone too. So is that what was going on? Did they all team up and do this together and everybody cleaned up? Because whoever painted that house did a pretty good job. I'm going to say that. I mean, they did a pretty good job, but that would make perfect sense, right? To cover everything up, because they also said that at the different dorms, all of the houses had this thin layer of dust on it. Were you guys sanding the walls, sanding the stains off, and sanding the floors, and that's what that dust came from? Why is there the black clothes in the bin? Like I said, there's a Sharpie on the desk. Did they get the DoorDash order and write Xana on it? Because by all accounts, Xana didn't have a DoorDash account. So what was going
Right.
on? And Molly said, "Oh, well, I was so scared that night." But why? If you didn't know what was going on, what happened? I believe possibly Dylan may have been Snapchatting it, because Steve G he said, I don't think these kids knew that their phones held as much information as they do. And I don't think she knew that either. I think she thought when you send something through Snapchat, it disappears. Why were there posts going around everywhere saying that everyone knew about the crime by 8 a.m.? Then nobody called until noon. And Jack S. said his alibi is he drove 5 hours overnight to his cabin. But you
Mm-hmm.
know what else? How if you left a crime scene at 5 a.m. and you call the cops at 11:58, is that a reasonable amount of time to get to your destination and have left at 5 a.m. after the crimes occurred and it was cleaned up? Who knows?
Absolutely. And he does have a surgeon, doctor kind of, I think his dad is pretty skilled in, you know, maybe repairing some injuries to say. I'm just speculating that. But let me show you something that I know that you've talked about. This video on the back patio, I've talked about this before too. On the back patio of this, I'm going to silence this video. I know you may not be able to hear it, but this is for the view. On this video, you can see obviously this is Connor, and he's posted this up here. Look at the back patio. Now, I noticed something the way this, and I've lived in Idaho before. I know what the sun looks like when something hits it. When I saw the back patio concrete, I believe there's blood over here. They've kind of blurred a lot of this area out. This is Gunderson's body cam. But take a look at this patio, okay? There's stains here, there's stains there, there's blurred all right here. And, this blurring effect is I'm just shocked because you can play this slow motion back and see a lot more. But get this patio looks like it has been cleaned somewhat because there's no snow in the shaded area where it would take a lot for the sun to melt this snow. Okay. Now,
Yep.
when you look at this patio and you said the stains, right? The stains are obvious. There's snow on the couch. There's no snow in this chair, right? But
That
there's,
chair disappears, Phoenix. I want to know what happened in that
yeah.
chair because, like I said, if they were tied up, I mean, if they could have tied them to that chair and then to that pole, is that where all the stains on the concrete came? Because, like you just said, there's another photo at nighttime where you can kind of see where the lights are hitting it, and there is so many big, round looking splatter stains on there. It makes me wonder because I think they were outside for a portion of it. But I want to know where that chair went to before. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that I've
Oh,
always,
no,
that's
you're
one of the
fine.
first things I don't know, man. I'm not like a psychic or anything, but, or anything like that. But something about that chair has given me cold chills and then I realized like, why did it disappear so fast? But then again, the house disappeared, within a month. So
Yeah, yeah, believe me. So you can see that these spots here are blurred out. You can see that there's some red stuff over here. And I kind of question that too because the look of Maddie and Kaylee's injuries, I think maybe they were actually sitting down. They were probably sitting down. There is some rope or cord on the other side of this. It's not the extension cord that's plugged in. It looked like maybe like a dog tie if they ever tied Murphy up outside, not that night but just in general. And the back patio all the way around doesn't have any snow on it at all, and those are the shaded areas that the sun would go on the opposite side, on the south side. So I'm wondering if this back patio was cleaned off with some type of pressure washer, or look at how clean, except for the blurry spots where they blurred it out. You could see the red stuff
you
here.
can see the
And this is
backpack right
actually
there too.
right here. Yeah, this is a chair right here. Okay. This is that green chair. And this is chair is dumped over, like somebody or a table or something is dumped over, and there's multiple snow footprints in the snow, multiple. It's not just one set here. There's multiple here on the other side and right here, and it goes back down and around. So there's a lot going on in this video that we may not see with the human eye. I mean, look at the snow on the chair, but not on the ground. How could they miss
That's
that part?
always what I've said, man, because those floors were way too clean. I live in a place where if it snows and you walk in the house, oh, you're getting floor prints on there. And if there was that much trash from the party in the house, then why was there no freaking footprints? But you know what? You know who would have access to a chemical cleaner that strong that would be able to, I don't know, power. And it's so funny that we're talking about this because they're literally outside of my house scrubbing the streets right now. The city is. So that's hilarious. But who would have access to that kind of cleaner, Phoenix? Do you think maybe the police have access to something that I don't know soaks up blood because they do make that powder? Remember, there's a picture inside of the ISP photos with blue stuff on the walls. I believe that's the powder that soaks up blood, right?
Right.
So who would
Oh
have
no, it
access to the
exposes it.
magic powder? Oh, well, you know, who would, but there's also another powder when I used to work at Kroger's. If there was a bad spill, you would pour this powder and it would soak up
Hmm.
all of the liquids. So, did somebody have
Yeah, you
access
pour
to something like
gas.
that?
Yeah, there's stuff
And
that you
they
could pour on
definitely cleaned that.
gas.
I would have loved to see that patio from a different angle just a few hours before the cops got there in the middle of the night, because I promise you, over time, the patio gets cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. And I always wondered, but they won't show you the house on Google Maps. So I can't even go back to see the concrete slab that's there to see,
Yeah.
has it gotten cleaner and cleaner and cleaner? Why would they normally think about this too. They will take people's houses they've been murdered at and let people tour them. They will do anything for money, which is sick, but why get rid of the crime scene so fast? And I believe they don't want you to see it and they blur everything out, because I pulled it up on Google Maps. It showed me 1987, honey. It was
Hmm.
station wagons and slug bugs, baby. So what are you guys not wanting us to see about the area? Do you not want us to see that there's a trail right next to the house that anybody could have been hiding in those trees? Um, that's what I want to know too, because I mean, what are you hiding? There's
Someone,
definitely things.
I know someone did a drone of 1122. I'm going to look for it in a minute. But I know that, you can see the top of the house in this drone. And I don't know if it was scrubbed. And it was kind of like a come and see Moscow, Idaho. But there's also a news footage drone out there. And it kind of gives you a back side of the house. Um, Now, let me ask you this. There are a lot of questions. Barry's family had a cleaning service. I mean, now, remember, I looked up all the names on the witness list. There were two people from the Idaho State University that were on the witness list that were in maintenance and cleaning. So, I mean, I wonder if the university had connections to cleaning.
Well, I'm sure a lot of these people were very connected. Like I said, I feel like this was meticulously planned. When I was looking at the crime scene photos today, I kind of thought about it. Did they have pillows and cups over all the really bad stains, and that's why everything was placed the way it was? Because it looks staged. And you know what it reminded me of? When they put the little evidence markers. So did somebody go through there that had knowledge of that or thought about that? Well, let's just cover up all the bad stains we painted. I mean, I wanted to know forever, where did the ladder come from on the
Mm,
side of the house? And they said, oh, well, they used that to get on the balcony. Or were they using it to, I don't know, paint the ceilings? Because
paint.
the paint
Paint.
looks fresh, and there's a paint can, there's paint drops,
Yeah.
and there's a specific part too. This is what really made me think that it was on the patio when they walk. So the cops are standing outside and he says, man, that's a big footprint. Must be a size 13. But he says nothing about the cooler bag 5 feet away. He points out that shoe, which kind of felt like, I don't know, planning a narrative. He said, there's a little bit of blood on this sink right here, but there's no blood anywhere
Right.
else. So where did that blood come from? Was it a splatter from outside? They were outside the doors, like in the chair, like we said, or because I mean, it's gonna splatter, dude. I don't care what you say with the amount of wounds that was there. If you hit an artery, do you understand like what happens? You know what I mean? So it wouldn't have been a clean crime. Did someone go in and, I don't know, lay down tarps? Because even the wall hangings look suspiciously new. Everything just looks too too perfect, man. It's like, and I know they wanted to paint that, oh, he's Brian's meticulous, but so are people on Adderall, like I said. And if you gave them a task like that for, I don't know, a decent amount of money, I bet you they'd have it done in the amount of time. Why were the doors left open all night? When the cops get there, Dylan's giving her statement. Nobody notices the four freaking people standing behind her that probably went as soon as she gave her statement and went and told everyone, hey, this is what Dylan said. So now this is what you guys say. Everyone's in hoodies,
Yep.
everyone's in shorts. That's weird, because if somebody was tied
Yeah.
up, they wouldn't be able to fight back. So why were you guys all holding your arms? Why are you all wearing hoodies in shorts? And I only find that weird because in the documentary, Hunter's like, well, I wore shorts over there. You know, I didn't plan to be there for long. Like, dude, who would even think that? Why would you even say that? It seems like a projection
Say
of guilt
that.
to me. I don't know.
Or a projection of hiding something. You know, I
Well,
mean,
I mean,
think
what are the
about it.
odds he's
Why
in
would you
there?
even
Who's
say that? Half of the things they
exactly?
say feel scripted to me, though. I mean, they just feel scripted and nothing. I mean, there used to be so much footage that has been scrubbed. I mean, and that would explain obviously painting in the ladder. So tell me what you found on Reddit. Tell everyone tuning in, all 250 right now. And there's going to be a thousands of people who listen to this replay, by the way. Tell me what you think that you just talked about painting and what you found on Reddit.
So last night, I never use Reddit, but I was just looking into some names, and somehow, I don't know, I honestly have no idea. I swear I don't. My phone just took me to this page and I started reading because it said John Rogers was the username, 1122. Okay. And there was just some strange things being said. 1122 is the King Roadhouse address, first of all. And then you have Jack John Rogers Showalter. So Jack Rogers 1122. And then basically all of the posts started around 3 years ago. And they were talking about how somebody posted and said, my neighbor's had a fridge in the back of his truck for 3 months. And the John Rogers account commented and said, oh, better call the cops. It's probably got a body in it. But what struck me next was there was a John Rogers 1122, and then it was communicating between that and a BK. I can't remember the exact username. It said BK something. And he said, you can get it done in 5 hours and he was talking about painting and remodeling something. If you sand down the walls and sand down the floors and you sand off the popcorn ceiling and then you just reseal everything, if you use such and such, you can have it ready to be taped off and painted within 15 minutes. And I said, huh, that's weird. So then I started thinking and I started looking at the crime scene photos. And then there was one more strange post from this account that said something about the lady said, I keep waking up and there's blood in the back of my pajamas. Does anybody know what it could be? And he said something, it could be ticks or something inside of your pajamas that are unconsciously getting you while you're asleep, or just something along those lines. And the hair stood up on my arms. It's like, is somebody trolling, or is this somebody who's a professional who's secretly, because there was one other post about they're washing the money from the cartels and breaking it down to smaller bills and this, that, and the third. There was just some questionable posts. And it's like, with that being the name, and then when the 1122 hit me though, I was like, what the heck? So then I go to the crime scene photos, and my dad used to paint religiously. Like, he was a painter. He would go paint people's houses. I know what wet paint looks like. That paint was shiny. There's a part of the pictures which they avoided. I feel like they really avoided showing us the ceiling. If you sanded something down, that would leave, I don't know, a layer of dust, right? That layer of dust that was on everybody's door handles but Jack Showalter's. But there was blood there. There was blood on the shower curtain. There was blood all over the place. But no, unless we get a presumptive yes test positive from the crime scene, then no, you can't search his residence. Little strange. It feels like somebody that hunts might like to do something like that. And I've never heard of Brian Koberger being a hunter either. I
No.
just, I,
You
it
know,
makes me sick.
that That is just wild because I'll tell you, in the evidence of Moscow Police Department, they did list game bags. You know, game bags, item 52, sorry. Item 52 in my notes right here, there were game bags. Okay, so there were all kinds of stuff. And this was 1132. Um, November 13th, 2022. They posted in evidence game bags along with a steak knife, a knife sheath, and you know there was another knife, a Kershaw knife that was found. But one of the things that they found were game bags. Do you know what those are? Those are like those big game bags that you carry like bison, elk. They're like huge
Wow, that's
bags
really
that you
crazy
take
that you say
hunting.
that. Because when they enter in around
Yeah.
104 to 106, I promise to God, when that car pulls up and the headlights shine on the house, it looks like a body is being dragged out of the house, which I always wondered, maybe did something more happen than just four people that night? And that's being covered up or something, because I just, it just smells fishy. And at this point, I would not be surprised whatsoever. Like I wouldn't. If anything came out that all of this was real and they did paint, I would believe it all. Because why would you want to get rid of the crime scene so fast? And if that was a crime, you would have been dripping everywhere. And if you pay attention to the stairs, on the front of the stairs, you can see little smudges that look like little rust covered drops or like brownish colored stains. But that paint looks fresh, and there's another picture where you specifically see a fan and it's pointed towards the wall. So like, were you in there and that's what you guys were doing, putting fans up to dry the paint? Is
Uh,
that why Dylan couldn't come out
that
of
would
her
explain.
bedroom?
Is that why the doors were open? I don't think, honestly, Dylan was there. I don't think she was there. I think maybe somebody was FaceTiming her. I think they left when the crap went down, in my humble opinion.
Well, the thing is,
And
there's
that would explain why it
well,
was a
maybe that
dream. She
was
can't
Maddie then.
remember.
Well, there's, you know what's funny? I told you the other day, when I look into this case, sometimes my phone, it's a brand new iPhone 17 Pro Max, and it will just freeze and some word will randomly type
Hmm.
out. And the word Alice kept typing out this week. And so I said, well, let me search and see if there was
What?
anyone named Alice in the case. Well, there was in Dylan's body cam, the first interview, she says something, Dylan or Bethany, I believe it was Dylan, says something about, oh, well, my friend Allie lives down the street. So I always wondered, when Bethany said, just come down here, was Bethany at Allie's and she's telling her to come down there? I just thought it was weird
Come
because I
down.
had never heard of anyone named Alice. And I just thought I'd look into it just because it was a strange thing. It just kept, my phone kept auto correcting words to the word Alice. It was so weird. And sure enough, they had a friend named Allie that lived down the street. So is that what it is? Did she leave in the middle of the night and doesn't remember anything? I don't know. But there was definitely more than one person in that house that night, because if it was Brian Koberger alone, who would he be telling, come on, man, let's just get back to the house and clean up. You ready? Clear as day, 3:46 in the morning.
Right.
They go to leave, and that's it, man. But there was a specific part where you hear him say, I've missed you since you were gone. And you know what else I found funny? Most time in crimes like this, when it's like a murder, if somebody really is like messed up in the head, they want a trophy from it, you know? And the Jack
Hmm.
in the Box thing was weird, but think about who took Murphy. Did maybe Kaylee tell him when they broke up, no, I'm not doing shared custody with Murphy with you anymore. I'm moving on with my life. Did that trigger him? Because in the interrogation, by all accounts, he seemed more concerned about where his dog was than his dead girlfriend. As a matter of fact, at the very end, the detective tells him, I know you're apathetic. You seem apathetic about that, which was a very particular word to use. Means showing no emotion, no remorse. But it's going to hit you eventually. And we have resources for you. There's a point where tells him, do you mind me asking what kind of detective is investigating a quadruple homicide that says, do you mind me asking you this question? They didn't,
Well,
I
they
never
want to
saw
be.
anyone's was their arms checked,
Well,
Phoenix? Do you know that? Did they check hands and arms for cuts,
I did
bruises,
not
stuff like
see.
that?
They say they did in the documents, but I never saw anyone hand out their arms or their hands in any of these interviews. Maybe they just glanced them over, but I don't think they told anybody, okay, strip and let me see your body, let me see this, let me see that. And I just want to throw in here real quick, this whole game bag, when you say game bag, there are so many different sizes, there are so many options available, but typically a game bag is like that you want to put the meat in there. If you're going to skin a deer or whatever, they harvest some organs and this and that. And I just wanted to throw that in there. So they only put game bags. They didn't put what kind, they didn't put what size. It just says more than one. So there were game bags. Okay. So just so everybody knowing, watching what I'm talking about and what I was showing while you were talking, that is a game bag. So that's kind of the process that they do to take the meat back if they're going to leave a carcass. So, interesting enough, this is what they do. They cut the animal there, they leave whatever, and they take the meat back. It's kind of gross and
Well,
messy, but it makes them pack out easy.
let's I mean, think about the fact that they had just found skinned animals on the frat yard like
Yes.
weeks before this. Anybody who's going to commit a crime like this is going to be a violent person. They're not going to be like Brian Koberger, who's never had an altercation. He's never, that I know of, been in a physical altercation. This is going to come from someone who has that in them. You're either, and if you was raised by avid hunters, then you would be somebody who would know all about that. So is that what that was about? Were the game bags to carry the bodies? Because think about it, that makes perfect sense to stage the bodies. There's no blood anywhere. Did they put them in game bags and then that's what we see? They're carrying them through the house. Is that was the ladder was for? Did someone hand a game bag and they carried the girls up the ladder onto the balcony through the bedroom? Because that crime scene's too if I mean, come on, man, you don't hear anyone running for their life. So what was it? They were tied up or something, and that's why Ethan and Xana's were so much worse, because they walked in as the dudes were leaving and they thought, oh, it'll be fine. What's weird to me is at one point before they walk out, that's why I think Dylan or Bethany was, somebody was there. I think it was Dylan personally, because he says, just tell them it was an accident. What do you mean? Somebody was just strangulated, possibly shot, and then stabbed multiple, 50, 100 times between two people. Tell them it was an accident. Were they trying to make it look like Maddie and Kaylee got in a fight and they just stabbed each other like it was a freaking, like, oh, well, we're going to
Fight.
fight to the death, That's
Right.
insane. But you know what would also be a motive? Because I think when Jack gets, if it's Jack at 5 a.m., a woman, I think, is the voice that you hear. He says, sorry, I just did it or something. That's what my audience on TikTok came to say, at least. So, but it sounds like a female saying, hey, he it looks like he's in a yellow hoodie. And then in Bethany's interrogation, she's got her hood up too. And Jack D had a hood up with a ball cap on again, which is weird because he did at the grub truck too. And there was the man who was there at 5 in the morning clearly had like a ball cap on with his hat up. So, it just it doesn't make sense that one person would
Yeah, there's a
have.
lot of things.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I think I have a little bit of a delay, and that sometimes happens. I think there were a lot more people involved. And any time that I saw that Jack in the Box bag, I always felt like that was somebody that ordered the DoorDash to send us a kind of like confirmation, right? Jack in the box or Jack in, the house or something like that. I've always felt like the little cards that were sent to the sorority, that somebody was trying to give a kind of a sign, a message of who it was, of who
Would
did
definitely
this.
make sense. Most people that do stuff like that do stuff like that. If you went through all that, think about how much work that would be, Phoenix. Think about how much time that would take, let alone the planning. Because another thing is, if Brian Koberger lived in freaking Pullman, how would he know that Kaylee was coming back that specific weekend of all weekends? How would he know? And why did Jack Showalter say, "Oh, I left with the girls around 2:30, Maddie, and I think her name's Kylie"? You know who distances themselves from victims? Somebody who knows something. Somebody that know. There's a reason why Hunter didn't go upstairs and see Kaylee, right? He didn't go upstairs. He only saw Xana. Why is that? Why did you only go in one room?
Mm-hmm.
And if you were checking for someone inside the house, wouldn't you check in more than just one closet? Or were you there to plant something or put something there? Or, and the whole text about the vape. I vape, and I'll be damned if I'm
Yeah.
gonna leave my vape at someone's house and wait until the next day to go get it, baby. I'm on my way. It's not normal. Your cell phone's at home, your vape's at home. The random 17-minute phone call you don't remember. And Dylan remembers nothing. I don't remember. But you know what's crazy too? They did a real good job on that bathroom, but there's a white Nike with a black strip down it. And I always wondered, was
Yeah.
that one of the shoes from the corner club? Because my personal opinion, I believe whoever did it showered inside and then left. Because, well, I mean, aside from the blood on Jack S's doors and stuff, but I mean, it's very plausible. And if they did clean up and sand the floors and reseal them and stuff, maybe that's why Dylan couldn't get out of her room. But if she had nothing to do with it, why wasn't there blood on her hoodie too? That's strange.
Well, I always thought it odd that Bethany walked into the police station with a yellow hoodie on. And, they let them go take showers or whatever before they even went into the police station. I thought that was odd that, Emily Alant's mother has commented on my TikToks saying, yeah, Emily allowed them to go over and take showers. Who allows people that are going over for a police interview to take showers? Who?
Someone who knows that
Now,
maybe
there
her
was
boyfriend was
blood.
involved.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. The incident is at the Moose Club. Now, there was, in fact, presumptive blood in the forensics documents in between this stove and this countertop where the Jack in the Box bag is right here. But if you look at the stove right on the bottom of the kick plate, kind of like where you open the bottom broiler, there is a stain here that they keep trying to block out that I have been trying to get a really good picture. I don't know if that's a stain or if that's an emblem on the bottom of this. Hold on, let me take off this. On the bottom of this stove, and I've been trying to get a really good picture. Is that a GE emblem or something? Because my stove doesn't look like this, so I wouldn't know. So is that a logo there? Is there stuff under here? I mean, I have gone through these reports meticulously, looking to where they found presumptive blood in the kitchen. They never even say whose it is. There's no conclusion to get us to the end result of showing who's guilty here. Who, in fact, is really guilty. We know now that it's not Brian Koberger. We know that. Do we agree on that? Do you believe that it is not Brian Koberger, Jess?
1,000%. And another thing that I found very strange. So you're telling me you had enough skin cells of touch DNA to convict Brian Koberger of a quadruple homicide. I've never in the history of my entire life heard of someone saying we didn't have enough blood to run through CODIS for the two male DNA suspects, and that's how it didn't get ran, and that's why we don't know. Honey, I've seen them take 50-year-old cold cases and take a little dropper and touch it to a little piece of blood on a fabric, and they'll get a killer from 40 years ago. So you're telling
Mm-hmm.
me that because they'll take a dried blood flake. I mean, you can wipe a Q-tip on it. Blood is a very strong thing. You know what I mean? DNA is very strong. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
I always wondered and found it weird that they ran that genealogy test, because it feels like more to me, maybe they ran a genealogy test on the killer, the real killer, and then maybe Brian just happened to be related, or maybe he was just completely totally just random. They just found a white elantra, because it's really weird how he never had any history, it looks like, with driving or traffic tickets either. And then all of a sudden, after this white elantra crashes and all this stuff happens, but that, I mean, Brian Koberger's car had a plate on it, right? And like I said, if he
Mm-hmm.
left and they were following him, who else would know that somebody was in the house? Or he wouldn't have probably known, because obviously he wasn't there, he was being followed. And I just found it weird, man. The fact that they get him the first, it was one time he's turning left at a yellow light and it turns red. He said, okay, well, what should I do? Should I have reversed in that situation? And the cop says, well, I don't really know that there is a right or wrong thing to do there. Just don't do it again. And then he gets pulled over for doing 41 and a 35 when he gets the $10 seatbelt ticket and has to give the phone number. And when he asks for his number, Brian looks at him like he knew something was not right. And mind you, the woman's intuition, why did his sister Mel, once she heard about the murder, say, Brian, you go running in the middle of the night, man, be careful, don't go out at nighttime with all this stuff going on? Did they just know that he was somebody who would go out at night? Because the 4 a.m. theory doesn't match with all the sounds that happened by far, or the fact that the car has a loud ass exhaust and Brian's car when he gets pulled over doesn't. And then he gets pulled over with his dad on the highway too, 3 times in a row, all before this. So you know what that makes me feel like? We got a quadruple homicide on our hands. We're trying to conceal who the actual killer is. I need you to get your ass out there and you better go find me a white Elantra. But the real white Elantra, didn't it have a sunroof too? I thought so. Who knows? And as far as
Yes,
the
it did.
girls, Eric Gower was always their driver, right? I believe Eric Gower's seen on the Banfield footage walking. So who had his silver car? Because Jack S
Didn't
says that they
well,
left
didn't
in
he
the
say
silver
he
car at
pulled over?
2:30. That's yeah, they did say that too, but I swear it was his face, man. I could be mistaken, but it looked like him in the 3 a.m. Banfield footage. And it's just
Hmm.
like, so if that's the case, then who was driving his silver car? Because I mean, if you wrecked your car, you'd need one to drive, right? Did they borrow somebody's car after that car wrecked at the
Right.
scene? Because you hear it clear as day, 2:40, as soon as the shots and everything goes off, literally 5 freaking seconds later, he wrecked the car, a female. So if it was only Maddie and Kaylee and Ethan and Xana and Brian Koberger and Dylan and Bethany just got lucky. That's another thing. What are the odds? You just got lucky, man.
Yeah.
You're so lucky that nothing happened to you and this went on for hours. It was not 13 minutes. It might have took 13 minutes to do, because my opinion is the girls were tortured and tied up and gagged, and then they finished them around 3:46 in
Hmm.
the morning, and then Ethan walks in at 3:49. So maybe from 3:46 to around 4:06 when the actual everything happens, which is another thing. Why is there 45 minutes of audio from like 3 something to 4 something they're not willing to share with us? But we can have the other audio that clearly
Right.
proves that this was not one person.
Right. What do you think of this? Have you ever seen this on Dylan's arm when you slowed the video down? Gideon was here.
I've heard you talk about that before, and I was asking who's Gideon too. Like, another thing, think about that. Then that makes sense where the Xana Sharpie came from, huh? Somebody did have a Sharpie that night, didn't they? Then that proves it
Well,
right there. So I never thought about that. That's why I love
well,
talking with you guys, man.
Gideon Roberts is actually a field officer with the FBI in the ISP reports. So that's what I was looking at, and I'm thinking Gideon Roberts. That name sounds so familiar. And sure enough, he is uh just wild. I mean, was the FBI there before the actual 911 call? Is that even possible?
Well, there was another report too that somebody had called at 8 a.m., but everything got so washed from the internet. And I believe they put everybody, either paid them off or gave them an NDA to not speak about it. Look at what Puff Daddy did he hid that video of him beating
Oh
Cassie
yeah.
for years. If you got money and you have status and people are scared of you, they're going to do, especially if you're doing something like this. You don't want to be the next one. And everyone says, why don't Stephen Kaylee's mom fight back? Maybe because their daughter was already unalived. Maybe they don't want the same fate to happen to them because, I mean, just imagine if your daughter was unalived and the wrong person gets put in prison and you specifically know, which is another thing I found weird. I felt like the Stacy 2 a.m. was a dark hour was a hint because they said it was 4. And that's why I originally went back to 2 a.m. And then I double checked again when I heard what Jack D's alibi was. But Steve kept saying, we need an alpha. Don't make me be the alpha. The alpha was one of the frat houses across the street. So was somebody there related?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes you wonder. And then there's a whole picture of another student with a freaking K bar, and his nickname's K Bar Charlie. So, and you hear him saying in the middle of the
Mm-hmm.
night, Charlie, what are you doing out there? I see you, Charlie. Was Charlie in hunting gear? Because by all accounts, it looks like he wears some. It looks like he wears it a lot, actually. So is that where they got the game bags
Yeah.
from? Because when you look up the show Walters, there's a picture of some, I don't know, some hunting trip. It doesn't look very recent, but they look like avid hunters to me. If it's the same people Jack's related to, I don't know.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of fraternity and sorority out there that are avid hunters. I mean, there is a sorority girl I just showed last week, and she is a hunter. I mean, she's out there with deer, right? She's out there pictured and everything right here. Look, I mean, my first deer. There, I mean, you can't make this up. This is one of the girls that lived at 1112 with the security cam. So you can't make
Wow.
this up. I mean, because I'm because I hunt, am I a killer? No, that's not what I'm saying. But there were plenty of avid hunters around in the area that could have been like no big deal, that this is just something that we all have to band together allegedly and clean up and help. And you know that game bags don't leak blood. They don't leak blood. That's why they're used. So
Makes perfect
just
sense
saying.
then. Like I
There's
said, if that's what they did, they definitely dragged something through that house around 104. So what was it? And that I was wondering, because I always thought maybe it was a tart, but I'm glad that you said that was a game bag that they listed, because I hadn't seen that yet. So that would make perfect sense. I mean, if you knew you were going to have more than one victim, you wouldn't want to get all that stuff all over you. There's no way you hurt somebody that many times. I
mm-mm.
literally could get I'm anemic, and if I get one little tiny cut, it will bleed for hours. I had a tiny cut the other day, and it literally filled up an entire tissue. So there was way more than that was at that crime scene. It looks like maybe when once they put some of them down, that maybe they bled a little bit longer. But I wonder if they waited until rigor mortis had started to set in, because they specifically said that Hunter said that rigor mortis had set in. And if Hunter was at home asleep, why did at around 1 a.m. everyone saying, Hunter, Hunter, is that you? Hunter, what are you doing? What are you doing, Hunter? So if what was he doing? And as far as the phones go too, like, what are the odds that all these freaking college kids just decided the night of a quadruple homicide where there was action all night that they was gonna nap? Who takes a nap and wakes up at 8 p.m. and goes back to bed at 1 a.m. and sleeps all day until 8 p.m.? It sounds like it was a premeditated attack, and everyone knew as soon as Kaylee and Maddie got home what was going to happen. And you would want to cover your ass,
Kind
right?
of,
You don't
yeah.
want to be an accomplice. So,
Absolutely. I mean, this is a key video real quick I want to show. This is a very key spot right here because they do block out Dylan's room where she stayed. But up at the top at the ceiling, they don't show it hardly on this video, but there is something hanging down from the ceiling right outside of Dylan's room. You can see the wires hanging down. It's on another video. But I kept saying, are there cameras in there? Did somebody know what happened when this went down?
oh
Did
my
somebody know this was
gosh.
happening at the time?
Dude, you
What?
just said that and I got cold chills. If you go to where the TV is in the pictures, the crime scene photos, underneath the TV, there's a tiny little slot of the wall that's
Mm-hmm.
been cut out. I think I sent it
Mm-hmm.
to you. It's maybe like 4 inches of a square cut out of the wall. But why? So was that a bullet hole? Or like you said, did somebody know everything that was happening in that house? Did the owner of that house maybe was the owner of that house illegally spying? Because we've heard of people being voyeurs before, right? That happens a lot. Is that who was
Mm-hmm.
stalking them?
I was
Somebody
thinking the
watching them
management.
through a camera?
I was
Because,
I was thinking the management all in these houses that were rented out.
well, I
All
find it
these
strange
houses on this
too.
hill might have basements. All these houses we looked at might
I've
have
asked
basements
that
except for the
every
1118.
time. I told my
We
mom
went through
that.
the
I
whole
said
thing.
I promise I think that house has a basement. I promise to God, I think that they maybe, you know what? Who knows that they didn't, that cabinet right there. Do you
Connected.
think that could be blocking a kitchen door? Do you think that cabinet right there, Phoenix, could possibly be blocking a secret door to the basement? Because I always ask that. Did they do something and everything happened in the basement or
Well, here's
outside?
the deal.
Because it's crazy.
This ceiling is blocked out, and that cabinet does not look like it's fixed. In my humble opinion, I installed cabinets in my house, and I will say this looks like this was added later as a standalone, in my humble opinion. But I will say this ceiling was blocked out here on the top of this cabinet and a couple of other little areas. It looks like there's a draft above it. There's like a little space. See that little space in there? But, when you walk into this room, let me just go there and see if you can see it. They try to meticulously cut it out
The way those
and
chairs,
cover
those
it.
stools are placed is weird too. It looks like the stools were staged. It just feels so staged to me, man. It really does feel like somebody went through in every area. There was something to be cleaned up. There's a cup or something over top of it. That doesn't look like any part. I partied a lot in my 20s, man, and that does not look anything like a party that I would have went to. It looks, and another thing, there's a where the hole is in the wall under the TV, there's a box of I believe it's White Claws. I don't know. I don't drink, but there was like different liquors or different beers inside of the case. So did someone bring in cans? I don't know. That was at the dumpster, or is that what happened and you guys made it look like there was a party? Because I'd love to know about the fight that happened the night before too, because
Hmm.
if the truth doesn't change, but oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. It's like you can't, if you get one freaking foot further in this case, it doesn't matter because then you have 10 more questions that don't make sense.
Mm.
Oh my
Mm-mm-mm.
gosh. You know what?
Okay.
What if they had been going in Brian's apartment? Because remember they brought up the paper that he had written about if you were going to commit a crime, how to get away with it. Brian was a very meticulous cleaner. I'd imagine that he was he was very smart, so I'd imagine he took his schoolwork very seriously. Do you think somebody could have maybe, I don't know, got that off of his computer and then took a note from it or something, because this was professional. This wasn't a teenager, just a cleanup. Maybe something happened and he called and then somebody arranged the cleanup for them. But this isn't a crime scene. This is a cover up.
It's a cover up cleanup, in my humble opinion. Killers do not cover their victims' bodies. And if he had 9 minutes, 7 minutes, 3 minutes, however many minutes they say that this was done in, there is no way that you had time to clean up, disperse of all 113 pieces of evidence that they possibly found over 3 dumpsters in the area, per the Moscow Police Department. Now, this is the picture I'm talking about. There, I don't know if this is a smoke detector or there was a camera here, but there's wires hanging down. And if it was a smoke detector, do you think somebody just grabbed it and pulled out the battery and never repaired or replaced it in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Because the honeymoon was over for these girls. They were definitely over. And if anybody remembers this video, I remember this video very clearly. Something was going on. This was made around 2 weeks before the unalivings. 2 weeks. Maddie put this on there. It is a scene. The music, the audio is from American Psycho. And this is basically talking about a manipulator. Okay. And it says, use this if you're gay. Jaden. I don't know who Jaden is.
It's all so
And that's
weird, man.
Dylan.
Dylan said that her favorite show is Criminal Minds. So you know who would have a pretty good idea, because as much as made up Criminal Minds is, it still has a lot of stuff about forensics in it. Um so somebody definitely had been studying into this. I don't know if they all had some sick obsession with trying to plan a crime, or if said they knew about something and just rode along with it. But I mean, if you were asleep, if you were scared, you wouldn't be Snapchatting. But if the somebody else higher was involved, why would you call the cops if they were involved in this? Which I don't
Mm.
know, but it seems fishy when you look at all the other evidence and it's like, why wouldn't you look into that unless it goes back to someone who has power or money, or and it seems like a lot of the people in that town are pretty wealthy. And you know what I have noticed as well, a lot of people have a lawyer background, and like I read in that book, it says that people will find loopholes to where they can get you guilty on something and just avert everything. There's a reason why they said, oh well, you can only, why would they say you can only test this blood after a quadruple homicide if there was a presumptive positive? You would want to know, unless, I don't know,
Mhm.
unless you're related to someone who doesn't want, because you have to think about it like this. Maybe it wasn't even about, oh, F the kid, let them go down. Maybe they're tied to someone who's so big that if they found out, that it would ruin their entire career, their entire life, because look at how the Coburgers have been treated. And I
Absolutely.
feel, if anyone from the victims' families or the Coburgers hear me, man, I am so sorry, because this is such a criminal injustice, man, and it happens all the time. And you know how I know they would tie someone up? Because I was handcuffed to a wheelchair with a cop in my face, nose to nose, saying, I
Mm.
said, look, I need to make a phone call. I said, my parents, I live next door to them. And if they see that I went out and my car's not home, they will have a heart attack. Like, I've been through a lot of loss and tragedy. And he said, well, obviously, if your mom gave a F about you, you wouldn't have been here. And I'm handcuffed to a wheelchair. Both of my hips were broken at the time. It was horrible, from a different vitamin D deficiency. I had to have both my hips replaced in my 20s. And I know how it goes. And I did what I did to that officer that night. I assaulted him with my mouth, if you know what I'm saying, when he was nose to nose, I mean nose touching my nose. And he even told me, he said, well, if you've never been in trouble before, how would you know that you get one call? I said, I'm not an idiot. Everyone gets a call. And he said, well, who do you want to call? I said, my attorney. And he said, I'll call him for you. What's his name? I said, I want to talk to my attorney. And for everyone saying, well, why didn't Brian say anything? Because he's not stupid. If you were framed for a crime you didn't
Mhm.
commit, you wouldn't want to talk to anyone, because anything you say can and will be used against you. As soon as they get you in that little cop room and they say, oh, no, we're friends, man, just tell me what happened. No, don't ever talk. Lawyer up immediately. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's small, if it's big. Lawyer up immediately if you hear this. Don't ever talk to them. I don't care who you are, because things get twisted. And now it freaks me
Yeah,
out
shut
because they
the
got all
frick
this
up.
AI stuff. They could freaking make a video of you committing a crime that ain't even you, with the AI shit they got now. It's terrible. But if you don't see him on camera, you don't have his license plate, there's none of his blood at the crime scene. If you were doing something that brutal to someone, you would have cut yourself. Believe that. There's never been a time where somebody's committed such a heinous, vile act. And I mean, look, when they booked him in, he didn't have anything. And I just find it weird. Jack S disappears for 4 days. Somebody goes to Mexico. Jack D went to Boise or something. You know what that sounds like? There was multiple weapons and you guys had to dispose of them somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, anything is possible, right? I mean, these are the future leaders of our country, folks. When you look at the people and what they were going to school for, and you know that some of these parents are lawyers and embedded in the community, I agree. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen this, and I kind of hesitated when I saw some of these accounts, but now it's making sense after, talking out loud and looking at things. This account is called Maddie, Kaylee, Zana, Ethan. Is that the order that they were actually unalived in? Is this the actual order? Would it make sense if it was Maddie being, first, and then Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan?
I mean,
I mean,
anything's
would that
possible.
make sense?
I believe that whatever happened with the girls, I do think that they were forced to watch it. I think either Maddie or Kaylee, because I'll have to hear more about their voices. Once you hear the voices that are in that tape and you start listening to interrogations, it just seems like some of the voices sound familiar. Like It's kind of weird, but it could have been that order. We don't know. And that's the thing that it boils down to. Everyone can't just go with what the mainstream media says, because when by all accounts, the cops literally
Mhm.
being asked, they're trying to paint a narrative, and she says, "Oh man, what do you think about this guy?" And he said, "Man, I don't really know about him. I don't think he's ever done this before." And she's like, "Well, would he do it again?" So this was his first, right? And he's like, "Yeah, but I mean, we don't have any evidence. We have no evidence." And then the other cop that ironically took over Moscow after all of this in 2024 says he's a psychopath, and he takes the narrative back over. So that makes you think, were they just, I mean, are they tied to the media too? And that's why they had to pepper spray this story so bad? Because I thought in
Well,
America, it's you're innocent until proven guilty. He didn't even get a chance. And if he doesn't know this, I've never seen someone not have to give a confession unless it was a planted thing. But then again, was he just the fall guy? And is he just there being recorded and shown to us once a week? I don't know.
well, here's the odd thing is this account, and I've been following it for a little while. When I say follow, I mean not hit follow. I just look from time to time. And this account says things like she didn't know this would be her last trip overseas. She didn't know this would be her last time she got to wear her pink boots. Like this person has some information and they're sharing it to us in our faces. It's so out in the open. And it's not a lot of people following this account: Maddie, Kaylee, Zaina, and Ethan. It's just not. And some of the things that they share, there are like videos in here I have never seen before. I mean, let's watch this one by Dylan. I mean, some of these things are like out there. Some of these videos are just like, wow, never seen this video before. Never knew this video. I mean, I don't know if it's the family that's running these accounts. I don't know who these people are or how they got these, but some of these pictures I have never seen before on this. Ever.
Well,
Never.
that's the thing,
And that's
about the internet too. Like they said, he had been looking up her account, but anyone can make an account just like anyone can text
uh-huh.
themselves from a phone in the middle of the night. So I personally think that they're still watching. I believe they'll watch this personally. I really do. I think they sit back and they watch every single thing that any creators do, because I made that video, and do you know how many people commented and said, "Thank you for talking about this. I tried to cover it, but I was bullied too bad and I couldn't handle it." So why is that? Why is it that people have to come in the comments with
Oh
only six
wow.
followers? And I notice on TikTok a lot, since that video went viral, I've had a few accounts that'll message me or say weird stuff to me, and then they'll be following me, you, Birdie, Amber Vance, Midwest Chicken Shore, Booking with B, all the only the people that follow this case, but they're saying like really off the wall crazy stuff. So it just makes me wonder. I mean, I believe personally, when the cop said, "Oh, he's a psychopath," that's because he knows who really did it, and the person that did it really is freaking insane, man.
Oh, I'm sure. This is the tat. This is the tat. Amanda B said MKEX is what Dylan has on her tattoo. Okay, this is what Dylan and Bethany, I believe, or Dylan and a friend. It's supposed to be photo of Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk missed their friends and got tattoos. MKXE. What do you think about that?
Or was it just a trophy of their the order of what happened and them being there? Because like I said, man, you don't know. You can look at these little girls. There are plenty of girls who are freaking psychopaths deep down inside, and it comes out. And like I said, what are the odds? You can get a tattoo for a memorial, so somebody will ask you and you'll get a little sympathy, or they'll talk to you about the situation. But what about 911, Dylan? What about help for your friends? You sat there for 8 hours
Mhm.
and couldn't call. You couldn't make a phone call, but you had an appointment with daddy. So I'm pretty sure that was stepmom telling you, "When they get you in this interrogation, you better lay it on thick." "Oh, I don't remember. I don't know if I was dreaming or awake." So that way she was a credible witness and now she's not. And I find that very funny, including the fact that they say Bethany holds exculpatory evidence, just like the Framed book by John Grisham says, but nobody's allowed to know what that is. Why did she go to Nevada and say, "I'm not coming back"? Why would you be scared you're going to go to jail for a crime if they caught the criminal that did it? Why is that? I mean, just why is that? Why did
Yeah, but
everyone wear their
she did
hoods and
friends. In 2024, she did go back. She just wouldn't go back for this case. She did go back. She was out on the lake having fun with her friends. Y'all, I made a video about that one. It wasn't, it's crazy. But I agree. Why are they acting like this? Why are they hiding from the law but yet hanging out with all their sorority friends? It's
I would love to
wild.
know. I would love, you know what though? That movie Swim Fan back in the day, this girl was in college and her best friend, she thought was her best friend, got jealous of her and her relationship and started stalking her, and then she tried to unalive her, and that's what this entire situation makes me feel like, because you know what? You know who would be jealous of two best friends that everybody loves, they get along with everyone. If they go away, then does that make them the it girls? Do they get to go up the rank then? Because everyone mentioned her Range Rover, and I know envy when I see it and jealousy. Well, nobody could understand. Kaylee's got a new house and a new car and a new this and a new that. And I know because I'm somebody who bought a house by the time she was 30. And so I know what comes with that. I think a lot of people were jealous of her, and I think that gives a hell of a more motive than just some random stranger stalker who's just sitting around and just watching people. Like, that it's the most insane thing I've ever heard. And the fact that she's got the Gideon was here and then there's the Xana bag written with Sharpie. I would love a linguistics person or whoever, whatever it's called when they compare handwritings. I would love for them to do that. I would love for them to take that and see, oh, maybe does that a specific way one of those girls wrote? Was Molly somebody that they knew and she was dropping something off that wasn't DoorDash in the middle of the night? Because I just don't believe it. What time does Jack in the Box close? Because only available, not available also pointed out that Eric Gower's alibi was he was at Taco Bell. There's a Taco Bell in one of the crime scenes with the body next to it with a lot of blood. So, but I mean, wasn't Taco Bell closed? Because it says one of them closes at 3 and 3:30, and you was there at what time? 4? But see, then again, wasn't you asleep?
Or,
Everyone
yeah,
was asleep. So what's going on? Who's got something to really say? Because nobody was asleep. It wasn't a quiet night at all. Everyone says, well, you really expect your neighbor to hear that? You don't expect the girl that lives in the same house as you to hear that and not call 911, but she can Snapchat. She can go on LinkedIn. Is that what she was doing? Was she adding Gideon's number to her phone? Maybe. Who knows? But she was in a t-shirt that said, my boyfriend's a
maybe.
blood.
I mean, we
My
just don't
boyfriend's a
know.
blood. Is she in gang? Is this a gang related thing and they've created a gang, or her and Quinn think they're in a gang? Because I don't know, man. She said she likes Vampire Diaries and Criminal Minds, and there was a guy in all black, but there was like multiple black outfits in the laundry baskets that had just been washed. So did they just wash all the
Mhm.
clothes of the people who entered and then plant them in the laundry basket? So everyone says, oh, well, that's just laundry. That's not a big deal. It's all black clothing, a bunch of laundry baskets, not just one. And I mean, the bushy eyebrow thing, there are plenty of people in that college that I've compared and they have bushier eyebrows than Koberger. And just all of it, dude. You would know someone's voice. And they said names throughout the night. So what's that about, man? I mean, I don't understand. Why would Koberger be saying, I've been so lonely since you left, when she had just left and broke up
Right.
with Jack
That
3
doesn't
weeks
make
ago?
sense.
Why would he say that?
Right. That makes sense. I mean, so much sense. Someone says, please check out evidence marker 3. That was a one cigarette butt from the exterior of the South Side entrance residence, marker 3. So somebody who was smoking sent and left their left their cigarette DNA on marker 3. I don't see any
That's ironic
conclusion for marker
because
3.
at 1 o'clock, around 1 o'clock, when the door code goes off, you hear Murphy bark. Somebody grabs Murphy. They must go back under the camera and pay attention by the 1330 Linda Lane around 1 o'clock, because then you see the guys enter at 1:04 and Murphy only barks once. And then when they enter at 1:06, he barks once again. But oh crap, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, but you
Do you
can
think
clearly hear.
do you think that
I
Murphy was at the 500 Queen Road apartment?
I think maybe Murphy, because you hear whistling around 2:45 after the guns were shot by multiple people whistling for him, and Jack D in his interrogation said, "Well, I overheard Dylan said he was missing." So that's what I believe. I think he got scared, and if they had the doors open and were repainting inside or whatever they were doing, was he? I mean, why wasn't he on his run? Because that's what that was, that wire thing, right? Why wasn't Murphy just tied up outside to use the
Mhm.
restroom? Because it's weird around the time that they were outside, and she did, what's funny though, I believe she did say at one point that somebody was outside smoking, but you specifically hear a noise. You hear a zipper unzip like a backpack under the 1330 camera around 1 o'clock after the cameras go off, after they enter the house. And then you hear something flick. And I said, "Well, was that a pocket knife?" And somebody said, "Honey, I've been smoking my whole life. That's a lighter lighting." And then it made sense because there
Oh.
was kind of like some smoke and stuff around. So I bet you that's whose cigarette butt it was, because it doesn't matter. I mean, as good of a job that they did, if somebody who cared could have gotten that crime scene, it would have got figured out. And that's why they got rid of it, in my opinion, so quickly.
Oh, wow. Well, what about this? I mean, here's another part of this whole mystery. Josie, Emily's best friend, she graduated with her degree, her bachelor's degree in sociology and criminology. They all hung out and partied together. So if anyone had a sense of criminology, it might be Josie. What do you think of that?
I mean, you got to think about it. They're going to college. How could we know? I mean, we don't even know half of the people they were actually hanging out with. And everyone said, "Oh, well, there was a lot of people that came in and out of the King Road house and this, that, and the third." Like they just had people literally running in and out 24/7. It's just, like I said, it's a tangled weave when you lie about stuff. Sorry, what was the question again?
No, I mean just thinking about, their schooling, what they're
Oh,
obviously
yeah.
going to school for, what they'll be doing after. And when you start looking at Instagram and they're sharing all these pictures of what they're doing, their friends, this is Josie right here. These were all her friends. They hung out together. You can be seen in a lot of these pictures hanging out together, on the roof. I mean, just all kinds of things, right? Sitting on the roof at 1118. I mean, literally, they lived like within 30 feet of this atrocity. So, I mean, when you look at the bigger picture, they all had knowledge of some type of nefarious information they could use to clean up crimes, right? When we say who would know
Definitely.
how to clean up a crime, I mean, it's just wild how, I mean, they all hung out together, they went partying together, they went on trips together. And, this is from the balcony right from Kaylee's bedroom. It just parties, seeing all these other people. I mean, it's just kind of scary that something like this could happen so close to home where they're living, in the area they're living. And it, it blows my mind. It's just, and they're trying to
There's
say it was Koberger. Blows
Well, there's
my
another
mind.
book that I started reading, but then I started reading Framed and I was like, "No, I got to start this one first." But it's called Our Little Secret by Kevin Flynn, the true story of a teenage killer in the silence of a small New England town. So, in 1985 there was a guy named Danny Paquette, and apparently just nobody liked him, man. He was set in his ways and they just didn't like him. So, guess what? A murder happens at the college from a teenage killer, and do you know who took the fall for it and did 20 years too, or however? I haven't finished the book yet, but he did a lot of time in prison for a murder he didn't commit in 1985. So that tells you how long they've been doing this. And you got to think, if they're passing this from generation to generation of corruptness, imagine what them kids have grown up and known. I mean, for there to be so many lawyers involved as parents and so many high up people that are prestigious, they would have more information about what to do in a crime. The fact that Dylan's stepmom is an attorney and she's the one who gave the statement when the cops come. But don't they normally say, "I'm sorry, you're going to need to step away from your friends over here. We're going to separate you guys, get your stories, and then we'll go from there"? No, they didn't do that. They let Dylan stand there with Jack D right behind her, I think, and three other friends and they all just hear the freaking what she says, and then they probably ran with that alibi, because that's what it sounds like the story got stretched. It sounds like she started it, and then they know the timelines now. Everyone was asleep at
Yeah.
1 a.m. Okay. All right, then who's entering this house at 1:04 if you were asleep? Who's at the trash can at 3 and 5 in the morning in the car that drives back? I mean, if you go to YouTube, the Linda Lane footage that's up there, and you just hold your cursor and move it side to side, you can watch this freaking car go back and forth towards the frats 1,000 times. And I don't think people are understanding how close
Mm-hmm.
Jack D and Jack S and everyone lived. This is running distance. It said that
Absolutely.
it's like 500 feet or something, like point five of a mile for someone to walk on foot to get back to the frat. So it's not hard to discern when there's a trail next to the house and somebody's being followed. And somebody pointed out that even after the crimes occurred, there was, even during the crime scene, people being there. If you look behind the house, there's a car, a white car that's parked back there, and this car that keeps pulling up, almost like they're watching the investigation from the bushes. So who knows, were they being watched? I just don't think it was Koberger watching them, but I'm glad you said that. Did they have cameras inside of that house? Because you can't go to an Airbnb or a hotel nowadays without having to do something with your phone and figure out if there's a device they're recording you. Were they, because I always wondered too, the normal human brain doesn't go that far down the sadistic rabbit hole, but there are sick people out there who make snuff films that will sell it on the black market of them doing shit like this. So is that how it got Snapchatted? And then the fact that they said that there was some guy who was there that weekend that was a filmmaker from Vancouver. And when
Yeah.
he's talking to her, he said there was no talk, but he says about, but he says it like there was no talk about. So that's more of a Vancouver accent compared to them kids to me, unless it was Jack D, because he does kind of have a different voice than the other kids I've noticed. But I mean, I don't understand how anyone could have looked at any of those kids or any of the other stuff that was found. The fact that there was a fight the night before, and when the cop says in the interrogation, has anything been going on? And everyone's like, no, we're happy, man. Everyone gets along fine. We're best friends. That's crazy. You would say that. We're best friends.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody cried. I swear to God, I've lost so many of my friends, and I cry to this day. There's no way you heard and saw everything you saw and you can't give them one freaking tear. But she cried at the sentencing. She laid that on real thick. And if you listen to the 911 call, that's not Dylan. That's someone pretending to be Dylan. And she's like, we don't know what's going on. Were they in freaking acting school, dude? Literally, because nobody was tears when they was walking through seeing all these dead bodies in the house. I've never seen anything like it, man, except for the people that are guilty. Like there's a man right now that just said his wife went missing. His story's done changed twice. She left this morning. She
Mm-hmm.
for an acupuncture. That's the type of stuff that they should have paid attention to, but it's obvious at this point. There's a reason that they don't want us looking into this, and they want us to just let him rot in
Right.
prison, man.
If he's even in prison. I mean, really, if he took the bullet for someone and they just ridiculed him, or he was even framed, right? How do we know he's even there? Especially when, I've tried to write, other people have tried to write, you have to be approved by attorneys, you can't get a response back, and that's typically not the case when somebody is in prison. But let me tell you something before we go. I shared this on my post on YouTube stream. I said, can somebody map this for me? I don't know if you saw it. Let me remove this. That was the book that you were reading that you mentioned. I said, can someone map this for me? This is the document from the FBI that says that the timing of the drive, this is the route that Brian Koberger took that's in the documents. And I said, can somebody map this for me? This is longitude and latitude coordinates. And I tried to map these because this is where they're saying he was. I tried to map these, and it basically told me that the provided coordinate component is invalid in standard degrees. So it would have to be in a different format. So why would the FBI put this in a document saying that it's basically where he started from, his point of starting, if it doesn't even exist. I mean, somebody can go double check that. That's why I said, can
Look
someone
up
map
the
this for
word.
me?
Look up the word chicanery. I didn't know what it meant until I started reading this book. And it's like
Uh-huh.
to use trickery or deceit to get political or, illicit gain. So who had the most to gain? Because they got rid
Yep.
of that house pretty fast. And then you got to think, look at the money WSU is having to pay up. Do you think the owner or the president or whoever of University of Idaho wanted to pay the families what they're going to get paid out for this? And either way, that's no justice, man. I feel so bad for them. I cannot even imagine what those families are feeling. I honestly get so many questions. Well, the families say leave it alone or this, that, and the third. Yeah, but I mean, if the wrong guy's in there and you can't convince me otherwise, whoever did this, if it's not BK, will do it again. That was a personalized kill.
Mm-hmm.
That was a very tactical. That's the best way I can put it. It feels tactical. It feels like this was so set up. They practice it. Did they practice with Dylan and Bethany or before they got back? I don't know, but it feels tactical. Like they knew what they were doing. Have they done it before? Is that what the Adam stuff's about? Because of the Hudson Lindo, like we talked about? Is that what it is? I mean,
Correct.
what else are they hiding, Because that's not an accidental death and you drown in basically a puddle. So, and it's just
No,
it's
and
just weird.
there have been a handful of deaths like this in the last 7 years in that area. It's not just one or two, there are a handful. I mean, just something is wrong. Birdie always says Moscow's the gateway to hell. I always say it's the Twilight Zone, right? Things disappear, people disappear, they are unalived, it's mysterious. But one thing that you did say about the film crew, right? I always listen to the beginning of this case, and someone said that they had set up cameras all around the area that night. Was that because they were filming and putting stuff on Twitch, or was there a snuff film made, or was this kind of like something that was taboo, you don't talk about it afterwards, and then they had to come out and say it was a crime of passion? I mean, there's so many moving parts to this entire story that some days it just does not feel real. That's how I feel.
Oh, I've thought that 1,000 times. Is this just a psyop to keep us not looking into other things that are happening? Because it's just too weird, man. It's just too weird. There's too much evidence pointing otherwise and not pointing to BK. So I don't understand it unless it is. Was it something to do with something with the FBI? And they've said, the witness protection program and this, that, and the third, which I thought was weird because when you Google on Wikipedia, convicted killers of serial killers in Idaho, Brian Koberger's name's not on there. And when you type in on Wikipedia,
Mhm.
murder victims of Idaho, Ethan and Xana aren't on there. So I was like, well, did Ethan and Xana live and they got put into witness protection because they don't want somebody to know? Or because I guess you can edit Wikipedia and delete the searches. So my friend did point out
Mhm.
that maybe they deleted the search and didn't want their kid's name on there. But it all makes you wonder because it does. It very much feels like, because no matter what, no matter how much further you dig, you just keep finding out more weird stuff. None of it adds up. It never makes four. Two and two just keeps going, oh my God, my head is spinning. Like, I look into one kid and find something out, and then it ties it to another person. Then you're like, well, is that the suspect or was it? I mean, the way that it was done, it makes me think that they read Brian Koberger's paper and knew how to cover it up because, I mean, they act like that's so weird too. If you were a criminology student and asked to write a paper, like, that's your job, right? So I don't know. Maybe was Brian a threat because he was a criminology student helping on people following the rules? Because it don't seem like Mr. Koberger was very much a rule breaker to me at all. But you know what? There are other people who have jail records and they have all this stuff that was going on and a history of violence and carry around knives all the time and make people uncomfortable at work, according to statements. So it seems more than likely. And I've never seen a
See, I thought
quadruple
maybe,
homicide where they let people go. Just go out of town. It's fine.
yeah. Yeah, just go ahead. I had a feeling that maybe they brought Brian Koberger in to find a serial killer because there had been so many other cases of the Pullman Four where somebody broke into the house of the girls in the college in Pullman. I thought maybe he was brought to that area knowing he was an outsider. That's why they targeted him. So, I mean, that's just a thought process right there. There are so many other topics that we could talk about, Jess, but we've been talking for 2 hours. I'm going to give the chat about 5 minutes to ask any question if you're game. What do you think about this new lawsuit that the families have put against Washington State University?
It makes you wonder
They're
too, man.
basically
Everybody, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, it just the lawsuit that came down. There's only certain family members that have been listed on it, and it's all allegations that have unfounded precedents in this case that we've already seen in court be like blown out of the water. How could they even say that they hold him responsible? They don't have a crystal ball.
I know it's so weird. It's the weirdest thing. But like I said, with chicanery, man, if you got people that have been doing this stuff for years, from the sounds of it, it sounds like way more weird stuff happens than not, and it don't get reported in a credible way. So, I mean, the money will never be enough justice for anyone. It's just strange that they have to pay for this, and it happened not at their campus. How would you know? Like you said, did they have a crystal ball? And this guy had no criminal history, not even a freaking, probably a traffic ticket, dude. So what is it? Like I said, did they just need a car? They
One,
knew what
only one.
car fitted the suspect. I mean, it's very strange to me. And it's very strange that the police had been at the Pullman Road Walmart right before the homicide. Did they see Brian in there and he was buying gloves and they shook his hand or something? And then I'm not, saying the police, but that was on a dispatch report that's where they were previous before that. So it just really makes you wonder, because it's not like they found his blood on a murder weapon. It's not like they found his hair, or his blood. What are the odds that he didn't touch a doorknob? And even if he did wear gloves, why would he take his gloves off to open his knife? Why would he do that? Why, if you were
Absolutely.
wearing gloves to go commit a crime that you cleaned up meticulously, why would you touch that knife sheath? But then you can't find the
Yeah.
murder weapon, and there was more than one. What was he doing? He was using them both at once. That's what was going on, because it sounds more like it was more than one person attacking these girls. And if the roommates didn't like
Yeah.
the way she would bet Dylan was holding her hand, who's to say that she wasn't a part of the face stuff? Because you don't make someone's face unrecognizable that you don't have an issue with. There was anger there, there was hatred there, and that's what happens with crimes of passions. You love someone so much and you just snap. We see it all the time. There's a literal show called Snapped for that reason. So, I
Hmm.
just find it weird that there was just a breakup, and you know how kids are when they're young, especially if there was Adderall and cocaine involved, and possibly, I mean, think about steroids and stuff with all of that mixed together. Does that lead to something? Was maybe someone not getting as much sleep as they should have and they were delusional or something? Because that's what's weird about that, the John Rogers Reddit post, because it's like, oh, I was sleepwalking or something and committed a murder, something along those lines is what it said. It was so weird. Like, it just really freaks me out. I don't, and the same thing, like, are they on the internet watching all this, trying to figure out what to scrub from the internet next? It's just weird, man.
Yeah,
It's
that's
really
the
strange.
you got a point in regards to what disappears. I used to think I would report on something and I'd go back and look for it and it's gone. I mean, maybe that's the next level of AI. Who knows? But I will say, if you watch the body cams of Warner and Snyder, especially Snyder, and I usually go directly to Connor. He's got some great videos. If you look at all these houses, somebody asked me a question, I'll answer it real quick. If you go look at these houses and research these houses, most of these houses on this hill, they all have basements, except for the 1118, which is right next to the 111112. All these houses on this hill, most of them have basements. If you go and look at all the real estate records, they all have basements on this hill except for this house right here, the one in the middle. They all had basements. So did the basements connect under the ground? I don't know. Is that even a
There's small
possibility?
tunnels. Yeah, there's definite possibilities. There is, man. That's been known more than not. There are tunnels underground. I mean, people fail to realize, think about the underground railroad system. What do you think happened with that? What do you think happened? And
Hmm.
if they did, I mean, that's a very suspicious placing for that cabinet, is all I'm going to say, because it could most definitely be a door behind there. Like I said, we're not in the room. We're being shown pictures of certain angles and what they want us to see, because what they don't want us to see is gone. Um, so it don't, it just don't
Yeah, and
add up. I was
that
actually
was one
looking
of my
last
key
night
points.
about a basement.
Mm, interesting. Yeah, because I mean, it is all possible. That hill right there, the houses, you can look at different angles, you can go and see. I mean, anything is possible in this case right now. But, just go explore for yourself. I always say go check it out for yourself. I give you enough facts and evidence for you to just go on and look at what we find. And you have the free will to go ahead and believe what you want, go into the rabbit hole, go a little deeper, find something more. I think it's all going to lead right back to the same place. I think it's going to lead right back to the same place the police were at, and the mayor at the time said this was a crime of passion, and I believe it probably was. We're just not accepting it because that's not what the narrative has been put in front of us. So, what do you want to leave with, Jess? What are your last parting words?
Just do the research for yourself, man, and think about what you would want, if you were this family or any of the families involved, because the Kobergers probably went out of their way to raise a son who obviously wanted to pursue a law and criminal justice, and help and maybe be a part to better that system. But sometimes it goes the other way, man. And like I said, until you're in that situation and you're handcuffed and you can't do anything for yourself and you can't speak and you don't matter, that's what it is. As soon as you're in the system, you don't matter anymore. You don't. You don't matter anymore. You don't get thought of. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. So that's what I think about. If I was the person, the friend of these victims, I would want the right person in prison so they could not commit that crime again. Look at all the
Absolutely.
facts for yourself. Don't just listen. That's my main thing, man. Don't just listen to what people tell you. Do your research, because if this wasn't a thing, the Innocence Project wouldn't exist. In this framed book, in the other book, The Innocent Man by John Grisham. I mean, look at Stephen Avery and Christopher Tapp. Both had done years and years for wrongful convictions. They get out, get awarded a lawsuit, and then got offed. So it's like, even if BK does get out and they get the right guy, is that going to put his life in jeopardy, and then he'll just get killed so he doesn't get his payout? And then they're going
Hmm.
to make Lifetime movies about this. So they're spreading and painting a narrative. And I just feel really bad, man, for all the families involved. So I just say, try to put yourself, that's how I do my investigative work. I try to think, what would I do if I was this person? What is, and look at it from there, because who has the most to gain? Who had the most to lose? That's what I think it boils down to. I think whoever did this is highly tied into somebody whose name can't be ruined. If your legacy has been long and you have a family that's very prestigious and has a lot of money, are you going to let something like that ruin your family's entire reputation, or are you going to just make it go away? Because from all accounts, BK might have been a weird guy, and but I don't hear anything about violence, and I don't feel like someone who was not violent and did not have hatred in them could do this, let alone do it and leave no trace. It's impossible. It's more likely that one tiny piece of touch DNA was transferred via handshake than one man doing the damage that was done, that we hear done over hours, might I add, in 13 minutes. Come on, man. It's crazy. The story is crazy,
I
and I can't believe that it even spread like it did.
Yeah, it was wildfire. And I really do believe the theory that the cops had the right guy. I think that the frat and everybody got together, some favors were asked of, and said, hey, we need a guy to cover this. this is what happened. We can't let this happen and go down. We are trying to be sold to the University of Idaho or, Arizona, and them had some agreement. They couldn't let this happen because they needed the sale to go through or they're going to lose a lot of money, and they couldn't have this hindering that sale. And someone stepped in and said, I got a guy. We interviewed him. Let's, either get him in the loop, frame him, go have a vacation with your family, and then you're coming back to Idaho, because there was no fight extradition. There was no preliminary hearing. There was nothing that could let him walk away and these charges be dismissed and have them look the other way. One question before you go, I have to ask you, have you gone down the rabbit hole and think maybe that the AK is involved and this was involving drugs?
I mean, I've thought about that. I've looked into that. It makes you wonder because you know that college campuses are definitely a hotspot for drug use and drug deals. And, you know, um, it makes you wonder because he says, you've been, oh my God. Wow, that would make sense. He said, you've been double dipping. And she says, no, I wasn't. But so double dipping could be cheating. It could be dipping into drugs or taking off the top and taking your cut, or maybe you're using some of the drugs that was supposed to be
Skimming.
sold and you're supposed to give them 3.5, but you give them 3.2 and keep point 0.3. I don't know, but was it
Mm-hmm.
that? Or there's another term, double dipping in sorority terms means to abandon and join a new sorority. And Kaylee
Mm-hmm.
was moving. So I always speculated maybe double dipping meant that. But what just clicked in my mind is if she was being stalked and he said, you've been double dipping. She said, no, I haven't. And he said, I saw you. So she was being stalked. And if they could enter the house like that and everyone had the door code, who's to say that they didn't go in and put cameras in there in the middle of the night? So is that what it was? I mean, and everyone said, she's got a new Range Rover, this, that, and the third, and all this, whatever. So it's possible. It is a very plausible theory, and that would make a lot of sense too, man, if they're tied to a cartel or anything like that. I get scared to personally talk about the case because you
And
don't know, man. Sometimes I just don't know.
right, and I always thought that double dipping was skimming, right? Taking my cut and cheating you out of something that you should have got. When I hear double dipping, I think money related. And Kaylee had a lot of money, you know, she had a lot of bank accounts. So that's why I
Mhm.
thought double dipping had to deal with the end game is money. That's the end game for everyone is money. How much money
Oh,
can
yeah.
you make? How much money can you keep? How much money can you spend? I thought it was
Right.
double dipping like money. And that seemed to be more logical than any other. Was it drugs? Was it frats? Was it somebody had to pay something back because something was done sloppy and they held her responsible, in my humble opinion.
Well,
I
you
just
know
kind
what
of
else I kind of find weird, Phoenix? The fact that they said, I believe they said it was Jack Showalter's toilet, that one of them wouldn't flush. Did somebody maybe get rid of a stash because they were scared or something? Did somebody flush something they weren't supposed to? Um, and get in a lot of trouble because there's also a photo where they show a card and a dollar bill rolled up on a table, but they said there was blue powder found in the house. Did we ever get a picture of that? Because that would be either, I think, either Xanax or Adderall, which was both said to be at the house. Sorry, my dog's quit it, guys. Stop. They're trying to wrestle. Hold on. Stop, guys. Come on.
okay.
So is that a possibility? But I mean, if she was being stalked, think about it, man. You wouldn't have to go stand outside of her house like a weirdo if you had cameras on her. You would know where she was at. You would know what she was doing. You would know if she was skimming. But if they were really, because they planted the narrative too, well, everyone else took their Adderall, but Dylan said she didn't do nothing. Kaylee would never do anything, she said. Which is weird too, because if that was the case and she was the one double dipping, why would she say that? But they made a point to say that Xana snorted her Adderalls. I don't know for sure, but when I
Yeah,
Google
but I mean,
Adderall, they come up a different color, and there was no white, there was no residue. So was somebody in there? Because I feel like somebody, whoever did it, had to be on drugs too, dude. You had to be high on coke or meth or something crazy to be able to do that. That sounds more plausible that maybe you stole all their amphetamines or whatever it was. Because how do you? I mean, a human body, dude. It's hard to cut a steak for me. So I don't understand, man. With the wounds that were left, it makes a lot of sense. And what, like the voice, he said there was no talk about, and I think he said you moving away. Was she helping
mhm.
transport stuff, and then she was leaving, and that was going to cost them money or something? Who knows, man? What did she tell Adam?
Well,
If we could find that out, it'd make some sense. Maybe, I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, I don't, I was married to somebody who did investigations for fraud. And I will say double dipping in the realm of there's something called double dipping scams, okay? It exists. You can go out there and research. It's a chargeback refund double dipping. It basically happens in e-commerce, in finance. You get refunded for an item, you receive a chargeback for the same item, and then you also keep this item. That's kind of like double dipping fraud. It involves goods and services. It happens in the financial industry. It happens like a scammer can order something and then they claim they didn't receive it. Um, I thought skimming or something of that nature, right? So I don't know exactly what the double dipping portion meant, but I think it actually had to be something obviously involving money. Money, money, money.
Well,
And
that's weird too. The John Rogers account specifically said in one of its posts something about they're washing money for the cartels, they're getting the big bills and then they're washing them and giving out the small bills, which I have no idea, but that was one of the things that weird John Rogers 1122 count said. So, what are the odds? Is that what's going on? Are they
mm,
doing something like that? And that's what's going on. Maybe something was supposed to be spent, or I don't know how any of that stuff works personally, but it makes you wonder because money is the root of all evil. People wouldn't believe what the things people would do for it, dude. I mean, if you could think about it, man, 10 grand to a college kid, even a rich college kid, 10 grand immediately or something like that. That's a lot of money to a kid. So is it paid for silence like this college town, the Kevin Flynn book, Our Little Secret? Because that town didn't speak for 20 years about what
mm-hmm.
happened. 20 years, man. So it's like, what are the,
Yeah.
again, my thing is, if go through the case, if you believe that Brian Koberger did this, go through the case and say, well, what are the odds? Because I promise you, as soon as you think
Well,
you've got it figured out, you're going to say, "Oh, wait a minute, I missed this," or there's this here. It's always something.
yeah, but here's the weird thing that they did. In this case, not only did they, secure most of the subpoenas and the financial stuff were all on Kaylee, but they also did the same for Koberger. So I don't know if he was, involved one way or another, how he was, if he was, how he did this on his own is wild. And I'm not saying he's, totally 100% innocent. But until they show us the smoking gun to say he was involved, I will believe that he is factually innocent per his attorney and per the court records and per the FBI and the ISP and the MPD that they had nothing on him. Absolutely nothing on him. So until I see something of that nature, I'll be here going down the rabbit holes in this case as documents are released and information comes out. And I only try to vet valid information. If I go down a rabbit hole and I find out, no, there's no logical sense that this makes sense, there's no logical hold on it, then I'll just discard it. So until then, I think you and I will just keep talking. I'll have you back again if you want to come on. I love your insight, Jess. I'm so thankful that you said yes. And I know my viewers absolutely love you. So let's hear it for my mods and Jess. And Jess, I've already shared both of your channels. I want to see you get to 10,000 by tonight. If you get to 10,000 by tonight on TikTok, I will go live with you on TikTok and we can carry on the conversation a little further. You are almost at 95 500. So since we've been live, you've gained about 100 and something. So let's get Jess a little bit high up there. If you're on the TikTok, go and repost her video, any video of your choice on the Idaho 4, and let's get her to 10K by the end of the night so we can go live on TikTok. And if you guys want to leave any tips or super stickers right now is the time. I will make sure Jess gets it, or Jess can share her Cash App if you have a Cash App. And tip your host and your guest. We greatly appreciate you being here, Jess. Is there anything else you want to say to this beautiful chat?
I just want to say thank you guys for having me. Thank you guys for being the definition of American patriots and for looking into the injustice. This is not an easy case to look into. It's not at all. This is the most I don't even have a word for it, to be honest. So just thank you, Phoenix, because you're a part of the reason why I ever got the cojones to come out with my thoughts. And I listened to a lot of you. That's what I was telling my viewers. I said, dude, listen, I can do the audio stuff and kind of piece together voices and sit here and really be meticulous about, watching stuff. But you are the one who knows the documents. You know them like the back of your hand. And I just appreciate all of your time and effort you've put into this because, it'd be a great feeling someday if we can keep this movement going and get more people to look into this and a possible, reopening of the case or an exoneration, which I'm not sure, Like I said, Christopher Tapp waited 20 years to get out. Stephen Avery got out, and then now he's back in for the murder of Teresa Halbach, which that's a whole nother story. I could do a whole 5-day freaking series on that. But thank you. Thank you guys for having me. And I appreciate, you guys listening to me and having taken the time to just speak with me and allowing me to speak with you because you're very insightful. You're very intelligent and your content's amazing. You have a great heart. It'd be easy to look at this case and just put it down. And sometimes my mom's like, just leave it alone. It happened the way that they wanted it to happen. But my dad told me you stand for what you believe in or you fall for anything. And I would hate for that to be one of my family members that passed away and there's no justice involved for their unaliver. And I would hate as well for one of my family members to be wrongfully incarcerated for such a vicious and absolutely heinous, disgusting crime. So it really makes me emotional because you don't realize until your freedom's gone, man, how much it really matters and how much it means to wake up every day and be able to go about your day the way that you do. And I'm sure Brian Koberger, if he is autistic, he probably had a very set certain way of doing things. So
Yep.
I'm sure that's really rocked his life. And even if he got out, man, how hard would it be to readjust and trust people?
Yeah, I agree. I have a son that's autistic and germaphobe, all that. I get it. And that's one thing that really made me started following this case and speaking up. Rebecca, thank you so much. Tina, everyone, we will do everything we can to bring you the latest and greatest, especially when more documents drop. Tina, you are absolutely amazing. Rebecca, thank you so much for that $10. I will make sure that our guest gets this $10 donation. Thank you so much, everyone. And Jess, the last thing I have to say to you, girl, is thank you for matching my energy. I think we are a really good duo. I'll see you back here on Phoenix Talks. I'm your host, Phoenix. Love on my mods while you guys are on the way out. So appreciate you all. Be well.
I've been chasing shadows in the night. Words echo silent where I hide. Every mirror shows a stranger's eyes, searching for the part